Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Budget and Finance Committee meeting, where tonight we will be discussing in depth the proposed 2020 budget with our major department heads. Thank you all, major department heads, for being here this evening, as well as everybody else in their support system who happens to be here. There's hopefully, as George Bush once said, this will be a kinder, gentler budget process with 1,000 points of light. But at any rate, what I wanted to, to open up the meeting and frame things, and just, obviously this legislature's been in place for, the better part of 3 years now, and I believe, those of you who have been here that whole duration have gotten, certainly the drift that, and we're looking at budgets a little tighter perhaps than they have been looked at before as a legislature, reviewing them monthly, dashboards, things of that nature. But I think more and more, we're trying to convey the philosophy that each of you as department heads should be looking at your departments as profit and loss cost centers. Looking to increase revenue wherever you can, if you can. Looking to cut expenses wherever you can, if you can, wherever possible. We certainly realize as a legislature that some of your departments are not in a position to create revenue because you're either grant dependent or reimbursed by the Fed and the state, and those are your sources of revenue. Doesn't prevent you from thinking outside the box once in a while, perhaps, to create a new revenue line item. But certainly realize the vast majority of some of your departmental revenues are, fixed because they're coming in through the powers that I just described. But I certainly do want you to all understand the fact that, we are looking at each department, and as you should, as your own little business, your own little cost center, where you should, as much as possible, try to create a profit, or if you can, try to minimize your appropriations to a degree where we minimize the impact on the county budget in totality. So, thank you all for being here. To my fellow legislators, I just want to point out to you, and remind you some of the documentation we furnished you. I'm sure you're not all have it on your frontal lobe like I do as the budget chair, but there were some documents we used on the 10th here that I'm going to be using as I frame out each department before I give you a chance to ask your questions, which is these budget notes that Sean gave us for our meeting 9/10, which pretty much talk about the major changes in accounts and for each department. And drilling down, seeing where the largest changes were in the largest departments. Another one I'm going to refer to briefly, fellow legislators, is the budget comparison 2019 to 2020 that we handed out last week, and I'm hoping you all kept at your desks in preparation for this meeting as well, as a support tool. And ultimately, we have our budget booklets as well to refer to. And we also have the proposed legislative amendments. The proposed legislative amendments we're all familiar with. At my request, I asked for a little bit more information on these this year because of the volume of proposed changes that we have in front of us. I wanted to see them categorized by department so that we could find them easily and not be looking at prefixes of GL numbers and say, oh, that must be a DPW thing. I wanted the name right on it so that when we talk to these departments, keep this sheet in mind and please kind of use it as a score sheet, because when it comes time for us to do our straw vote on each of these, we may possibly look to do them collectively because we will have spoken to each of these people here this evening, whether it's a department head or in the case of Matt's own department, the treasurer's department, or the smaller departments where some proposed changes are being made here. Emergency management, Board of Elections, people who are not represented here tonight because of the size of their budget. As you know, we call the big ones in. Please use this kind of as a score sheet as we look at these. And some of the questions we are going to ask of each department are to explain to us the need for these particular line items to the dollar magnitude that were originally proposed versus which is being proposed as an amendment to it, so that you can discuss it, defend it, and toward that end, I thought it would be a good idea. This is probably a new move, but to have Matt equip these large departments with these proposed budget changes that we are going to be bringing to them as a legislature, so that they had obviously it's something we got Friday. It got worked and honed this morning a little bit more. It's nothing we were sitting on for 2 weeks and said, oh, let's just give it to them in the morning so they have as little time as possible to prepare for it. It was, the first version of it we got in an email Friday afternoon, and it was tweaked, and you all have it this morning just about when we did. So nobody's really got an unfair advantage here, but we did want you to be equipped with those items that we as legislators are perhaps proposing to change on your particular line items. So that said, I just wanted to frame up, some of the documents we're going to be using, some of the process we're going to be going through. And we see seated under the police lamp, no pun intended, is the Sheriff's Department, who will be our first large department to discuss their budget. And for all of you, if you want to orient yourself to the budget workshop book, we are Department 15, first found on page 14, and it stretches about 3 or 4 pages. Now, to all the department heads who are here, this budget comparison sheet you don't have, but it's something that we ask the administration to provide us, which shows us year-over-year changes in your budgets. And it was a revelation. On an aggregate basis, these were totaled at $651,000 for countywide. And Sean gave us some backup material as far as that was concerned for our meeting on the 10th. And it proved that about 560 of that 650 are salary increases that we know you can't avoid because they're contractual, they're part of union contracts, things of that nature. And the other 90 were, described to us as being also contractually related. So, we understand that a large year-over-year change in most of your budgets has to do with, salary expense. It's logically the single biggest expense line item in any budget, to go along with the fringes. But I'm going to, invoke to each of you a year-over-year change that we saw on this, ask my questions, and then bring it around the horn here for other people to ask you questions as well. So, Sheriff Smith and Under Sheriff Rust, your year-over-year changes were a pleasure for us to see. They were less than last year. It was largely a function of the fact that you enhanced your revenues. Quite frankly, in a nutshell, your revenues are up about $517,000 in the proposed budget. Your expenses were up as well, $149,000, but it led to this $367,000 year-over-year situation where you're less than you were last year, which we're all pleased to see, and we appreciate the effort you put into that. Obviously, Sheriff Smith, you have some revenue line items, unlike some other departments, that you can tweak a little bit. For instance, the foreign prisoner line item, for instance, that some other departments may not have at their fingertips to be able to adjust. So I just want to go down, Sheriff Smith, and some of my questions. I mean, and also we received on this budget notes the large year-over-year changes, as I mentioned. So going down, yours are not on here because you came to us with a budget that was less than last year insofar as expenses over revenues. But taking a look at it, Sheriff Smith, in your revenue line items, I see a couple things. I'm just looking for a little information on. I see 3 line items that are the largest contributors to your year-over-year increase in revenue. We'll get the big one out of the way. The foreign prisoners are budgeted. They were 150 last year, and adopted in that budget. You had put in 375. The administration did 475. A $325,000 year-over-year increase, which is obviously the largest contributor here to this fact that your revenues are greater than your expenses. And we all know what that is. It's foreign prisoner volume, and we appreciate your efforts in being able to handle a larger volume. Yes?
Federal.
I'm sorry?
Federal.
Federal, yes. Federal.
Federal.
Yeah. Well, yes, thank you. Sorry about that one. I mean, foreign to Montgomery County is what I meant. But yes, federal prisoners. So the other line item I had a little interest in was public safety services, other governments. That's up about $68,000. And shared services charges. Can you describe a little bit what those things are and why you're able to increase those as revenues?
I think the most significant increase there is the addition of the potential for a school resource officer at the Adirondack Academy, which was a resolution approved earlier this year.
Okay.
The anticipation of that revenue coming is like $67,000.
Okay. And the 93 on the shared services?
The 93 on the shared services is directly related to the courts and townships that we provide security for at their local courts.
Mm-hmm.
Security details at school districts, over and above the school resource officer jobs, juvenile transports, things like that.
And I'll ask the question because it's worth asking to all of the department heads. Are you comfortable you can make these numbers?
Yeah. I mean, the county executive and the treasurer raised the federal inmate one by $100,000. I mean, we're on pace this year to bring in 620, which is a $500,000 increase in 2019. Mm-hmm. If things stay status quo in 2020, yes, I'm comfortable. Okay. And the other two, yes as well? Yes.
Okay.
The only thing is that we're working on language still with the county attorney for the academy. So if that contract falls through the cracks, I will come back to the legislature to advise you that we will not be filling the post.
Okay.
Which would be a decrease.
And it would be a decrease, but it would also eliminate some positions, correct, that are in the budget, so it would be an offsetting set of circumstances.
Correct.
And also, I have no questions on the expenses myself, but now if we move to the legislative amendments, that have proposed the legislative amendments, there are 7 proposed legislative amendments. No, I know that are proposed by a legislator, and then there are some corrections that are being proposed by the administration as well. So, Chairman Headwell, since you are the person who has put these potential legislative amendments in, do you want to run with asking questions on them, or would you like me to?
I mean, the only thing that I did, Mike, is I went down through and looked at what we spent so far this year.
Okay.
And just was doing a comparison of what we spent this year compared to what was the line item for next year, hoping that, yes, the sheriff and the undersheriff would be able to speak on that. I mean,
okay.
I was just told that something was a contractual issue, okay. So that was, so, I mean.
Why don't we handle them that way with all the departments? You know what they are, they're in front of you. So, Sheriff Smith, would you like to go down the list on the second page, anyway, of the proposed amendments? And discuss for us line by line, you know, your feelings on those potential recommended cuts.
Can I take it this one?
Absolutely.
Do you have a year date for 19?
Yeah, I have a year to date.
For 19?
Yeah, I got from Sean got it from.
Oh, we got them. I thought we got
year
them.
to date.
No, not the year to date.
Oh,
Sean,
That would be nice for us to all have.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
whatever. Appreciate that.
Cheryl can make copies of it.
wait a minute.
Is that different than what you guys received a week ago?
The year to date, we didn't get it at the last. We had the actual.
Right. The one that you passed was 2019?
2019 year to date.
Yeah, I don't know that we were.
I mean, it's all.
Well, while Cheryl's working on that, we won't hold up the meeting. Sheriff Smith, can you go down those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 line items and offer your input on those?
Sure. So the first one is the dispatcher part-time list, which the chairman has requested be reduced by 15,000 from 70 to 55. And year to date, we have, our expenditures are down year to date. Our concern is the turnover rate at the dispatch center changes drastically. So if we stay full staff, it's a situation where we can survive. If we don't stay full staff and we lose 2, 3 full-time dispatchers, we have to backfill every one of those positions because of mandated staffing levels, and it creates a big problem for us. So the key to that line is if the ledge is okay with us moving money if we need it. I mean, you know, so as it stands this year, we're going to be absolutely fine. I assume that 55 also correlates closely to the 2018 expenditures. That's what I looked at. We spent 49,000 in 2018. So,
Would it be easier for you if it was $7,500 decrease instead of 15,000? I mean, would that bring you closer to home?
well, I'll be honest with you, legislator, I don't know. We could be over at what we're budgeting here, or we could be well under. It all depends on how the wind blows with staffing levels. You know, and that seems to, so far this year, it's been pretty consistent. We've only had one opening and we just recently filled that. So if it stays consistent, we're in good shape.
I think my play on that is, and I don't like touching fund balance, but I'd rather, if we could be a little more conservative here, and if you need it, come back and provide for it.
And I'm all for that. The key is I just don't want it to look like the sheriff is doing irresponsible budgeting and coming back looking for money.
You have my confidence that
I agree with Legislator Patel on this issue, which I much rather we can cut, and then eventually people have to come back and say, you know what, you cut us a little bit too far, you know, we need to do this, we have moved the money as much as we can, we can't move any more money, we need this. But, you know, I'm looking at, you know, part of my district is increases in, I think I was going back and doing the homework and trying to see how we could, you know, reduce the budget a little bit. And, you know, again, if you come back and say, absolutely, there's no way that we can do this, I understand what you're saying. If you say, you know what, we can do it, we think we can do it.
Well, this is one of those lines I'm willing to give it a shot and try to do it.
All right, do we want to give it a, I mean, I'm going to start taking notes here so that we can change this when we go through our straw vote. Don't want to have to go back and revisit these line by line after doing them the first time around. 7,500 cut, would you rather live with, or the 15? I know what you'd rather live with, but.
Leave it at the 15,
Okay.
and we'll see where the chips fall.
Okay,
As long as you guys are understanding and you know.
okay, let's move on then. Overtime pay.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
just briefly at this juncture, kind of to set the tone, I appreciate the notion of cutting the budget where we can and finding out how justifiable some of these expenditures are. But the notion of you can come back to us later for fund balance, I don't think is so well received during the year as it might be now, as an idea.
True.
And so, and I've seen some department heads really get caught to task over coming back during the fiscal year and having to take from fund balance. So we had that argument on a regular basis. So now with respect to this particular item here, which is again setting the tone going forward, I think we need to be mindful of that when we say come back to us for fund balance later in the year if you need to. And to repeat myself, I don't think that's as welcome as it might sound now.
It's a very good point, Legislator Chesky, so hopefully we all keep that in mind during this process here. Jeff, how about the overtime pay?
The overtime pay is more of a concern to me. If you look at the expenditures in 2018, $169,385 was spent overtime in 18.
Okay.
So in 19, we've tried to do a very good job of limiting that and utilizing staff any place we possibly can. But we presented what we felt was a justifiable.
Middle of the road figure. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and it's already been reduced one time from the county executive and the treasurer, which is understandable, and now this is the second reduction. So, you know, we had a resolution on public safety tomorrow night requesting we use $32,000 to try to meet the end of the year in 2019. And again, it's back to where I explained all the overtime that gets spent out that comes back to this agency when it goes to the county general fund to fill in that overtime line.
All right.
So when you look at expenditures for 19, it looks like we've spent more than we really actually have because we have that money coming back in.
I mean, I'm certainly not going to do straw vote twice, but I mean, I'm inclined to leave this one as is.
Which one is that?
The second one down.
Overtime?
Yeah, overtime, based on the sheriff's explanation. I'm putting check marks next to them so that when we come back later on to vote on them, you know, if there was any, you know, one in contention, we can vote on it, but to do them in bulk, if at all possible. All right, deputy sheriff part-time.
Deputy sheriff part-time is a major concern for us. So how we send people to police school is as part-time deputies before they fill a full-time vacancy in our office. So when you go to police school, right now we have a gentleman in basic police school in Schenectady. He makes approximately $2,180 per payroll. It's a 24-week school. So that's $26,160 part-time to go to school. So we have intentions of sending one in January and then one again in July. So two schools, two people is $52,320. That's without a part-time deputy working a shift ever. That's just to go to school to become certified. Right now we have two full-time openings because of a retirement, a resignation, and we have a senior investigator retiring.
I don't think you have to say anymore. I think we're good there.
What was that adjusted by the executive from your requests?
Check the sheet
Sean, if you guys can speak up,
Yeah.
so we don't have to play Louis Leakey looking for bones in Africa here, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so we have reduced by 5,000.
Okay. Okay. So that one sounds legitimate. Okay. How about equipment rental?
The equipment rental, again, the equipment rental pays for DPW maintenance vehicles, Rico copiers, Lucille's Browns, towing companies, radio repair, Motorola, anything that needs repair, and insurance deductibles. So if you want to take a chance that the vehicles hold up and don't have any major repairs, same situation.
And you spent only about $36,000 so far this year. That's what I was looking at and saying, hey, you're.
Very difficult to budget a public safety budget because you don't know the vehicles running 24/7, you're all going to have.
Sheriff, going back to the deputy, or the school, the deputies don't get the health insurance during that time.
They do not, correct. No, we send them purposely as part-time so that they don't collect benefits in school.
Thank you.
All right, what do we feel on this equipment rental?
Let's try it.
Try it? Okay. Computer software.
Computer software was a reduction of $2,000. That's a difficult one because of things that are scheduled to be paid. The pays are scheduled SureTech, which is our license plate reader cameras, outside access for our IT guy to be able to fix things around the clock, antivirus for the computers, and mapping system in the office. I haven't looked, you got the expenditures handy, Chair?
I think you spent so far 4,300.
I know there's some more coming out, but, you know, again, we have contract increases, we budget what we think we need.
Okay.
I would say, how about, can we split the difference and go to 10?
1,000.
1,000 bucks.
Right.
Okay,
And that would make us feel both good, I think.
okay.
Change it to taking 1,000,
Cheryl, let's go back over this since we started it while you were making copies or whatever. Dispatcher, we're gonna leave with the clock.
Yes.
Overtime pay,
You're gonna just say that one.
no, I mean, Bobby brought it up, but then it sounded like, overtime, we're gonna leave with the 15 cut.
I'll tell you what, go to 100 on the overtime. I'll do the best I can.
All right, so that'll make
Get you
that,
notified.
that'll make that 10,000, right?
Yep.
Okay. Deputy sheriff, what we're gonna do
They're
there?
gonna leave that the same.
You're gonna live with that cut?
No, not a cut,
Leave it at 60.
You got spent that one.
Yeah.
without question.
Okay, no change there.
So let's go back. The overtime, Jeff, you said we were going to go down to 100,000?
Right.
Which makes your recommended change not 15, but 10.
Right.
Okay?
Wait,
No,
no, it's at 5.
Or 5.
Five.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was. Okay. I was looking at the wrong box. Okay, 0.
Which one is 0?
The 0 is, he's gonna live with the, deputy sheriff part-time.
Line 15.
No.
No, let's stay the same.
That's
Sorry, I mean,
stay-
stay the same, sorry, stay the same. The computer software,
Going to 10, so only 1,000 decrease.
1,000 decrease, 10 and 1,000 decrease. And, all right,
So this next,
Wait, I'm sorry, Chairman,
yes,
so the deputy sheriff part-time, I'm going to remove that line.
yes. Please, thank you. Account clerk,
this next position I'm really gonna battle for because I know you don't want any new positions, and I get that. It's a part-time position, it doesn't require benefits. And we have 125 employees with a very, very, very busy office and 2 clerical staff. And that 2 clerical staff does payroll, ordering, billing, contract extensions, everything and anything for not only 125 staff, but 120 inmates. Pharmaceutical, this $14,000 for a part-time account clerk like this would take care of strictly the facility. The commissary accounts for the inmates, the haircuts for the inmates, all the ordering for the inmates, the registered certified mail for the inmates, which is extensive work. And the clerical staff trying to jockey back and forth to do both of those things is just difficult to keep up on. I think if you look at other departments with the amount of employees and inmates and clerical staff, we are well below the norm.
Chairman Hemwell,
Okay.
all right. We'll remove that line item, please, Cheryl.
Can you just go back up to the computer software?
Yep,
It started at 11,000,
now it's 10,
so it's $1,000 difference.
yeah.
Okay,
Eliminate account clerk types, please. And computer equipment, sure.
Computer equipment is for the jail. All of our computers in the pods were purchased in 2008. They're thin clients, they're not desktops, and they're struggling to work with the software system that was purchased prior to my arrival.
Okay.
So we documented a healthy number to replace every computer in the facility. Could I live with a little bit of a reduction? I mean, I'll do what I gotta do, whatever the ledge,
Could we replace half of them and then the other half? Or could
we can try.
Let's do a round figure though. 13, 12, what do you want?
Reduction.
Yeah. Sure.
How about half of 12.5?
Well, I just didn't want to get into $500 increments here.
How about 15? It's like an auction.
So,
So it'd be a $10,000 reduction, that would put us down to 45, I mean,
So,
Okay, it started at 55,
Yeah.
so that would only be 10.
how about,
40.
yeah, 40 would drop it down 15.
okay, so we're going to go change from 55 to 40. And it'll be a $15,000 chop. All right.
Chairman,
Yes. Legislator Isabel. Yes, sir.
is there gonna be a problem with interfacing 2 or 3 different types of computers in there?
I gotta talk to the IT guy,
You should start 2
I will talk to him.
and take the money.
I hope that won't be the case, but we do the pods first and then booking and central control after, maybe it'll
Or
work.
sometimes you could set it in like between the pad and whatever it starts. So I check first before pulling it all apart later.
I will check, if I don't get back to you, then the IT guy said it would be fine.
Okay. Sean?
Just on that line there, there's a typo, it should be 3115, not 3110.
Oh, you mean the account?
Account.
On computer equipment,
Yeah. Can you make that change for us, Cheryl? Thank you.
Same thing on line 14, Sean, correct? It should be 3020, not 3120.
Which one? Yes, 3020.
And number 15, it should say deputy part-time, not dispatcher.
okay, hold on, what's the last one you just said?
Line 14,
It's the page, it's the
Page
first,
14.
the first entry.
Should be 3120,
3020 with a sub account 14.
okay. And then what was the other
and
one?
then page 15, it just says dispatcher part-time, it should be deputy.
I think that was corrected, Judge.
Okay.
For line 145, you have that said deputy sheriff part-time?
Yes.
Yeah. We all set?
Deputy part-time. Yes,
All set, Cheryl?
yes.
All right, Sheriff Smith also will turn to the last page, and we have some administrative recommended changes. It appears to me, here the last 4 entries here below the red line, it appears to me that the 1 was traded off for the other, the 5 and the 5, is that true?
That's correct.
So, I think we can, everybody all right with those that way?
Yes.
It's like a budget transfer, more or less. So Cheryl.
Just so you know, that was an input error on the system.
Oh, okay. Oh, so then let's take care of it now. You know, that's good.
What are we doing?
Down at the bottom.
Those 2 $5,000 entries, Legislator Patel,
Yes.
because of an error, they had to make an adjustment, you know, removing one and putting it in another category, like a resolution budget transfer. So are you eliminating them, Cheryl?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, well,
No,
no,
that's-
you have to
that's a
stay.
change.
Yeah, you have to
Made
stay,
it.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you have to stay.
But
All right, now the last 2 are for corrections officers, and they're, you know, meatier pieces of change here, $43,150 apiece. Certainly like to hear a little dialogue on that. Yeah.
When the executive budget is created, anytime the position is vacant at that time, it automatically defaults that position to a 0 in the budget. And I'll admit it was an error on my part. I didn't catch that was a vacant. And those are 2 positions that I filled.
Yeah, no, you're on my part, it's not just
Okay.
the 2 of us together missed it.
And you know what, Sheriff, doing a little math here, you know, another $86,000, your budget is gonna be, you know, positive 280 or something year over year, so,
And you just worked out 41,000 on it.
yes, on the other side, so.
So I really feel like I was nickel dying, but that's.
Kind of the paper clips.
All right.
Well, I would have to agree with that, Sheriff, I mean, what we just did results in 0.0027% of his budget.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
I mean, for us to tell him what he budgeted, to come back to us later on, I agree with legislator Jitsi that I don't know why. Well, anyway, that's just my.
Well, you know, Legislator Sweet, I agree with you 100% in when I say that our $651,000 year-over-year change in its totality is only 0.4% of our whole budget. So this is an exercise in minutia, no doubt about it, but one that is, you know, granted to us as a legislature, and obviously it was, you know, this being my third year, this is the most volume we've had of these proposed changes, but I also think, you know, in some respects, it sends a message that we're looking at these things as closely as possible, as they should be as well. So, but I certainly understand where you're coming from, Legislator Sweet. All right, Sheriff, if there's no other questions for the Sheriff? Yes, Sheriff.
If I may, just one thing, I submitted a request for a truck and a car that was taken out of the budget from the executive and treasurer. Because our revenues are what they are in 2019, it is my anticipation to come here in November, seeking to purchase those out of that jail revenue, so that it doesn't affect the budget
For next year.
for next year. So
Okay.
we would catch up on our vehicles, be in decent shape, and not affect the budget in 2020. I just want that on the radar.
And you'll still be ahead of the game for 19.
Way ahead of the game.
Yeah. Thank you for that heads up, and I think we'll be prepared to entertain that resolution. Any other questions?
Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both, gentlemen. All right. Next up is public health. I'll talk a little bit too. Public health is cost center 16, and you will find it beginning on page 19. Thank you for making yourself available on there. Sorry.
I was going to introduce,
Yes.
this is Patricia, she's our business manager, and she really handles the money in our department. I spend it and she tells me where I can spend it.
Okay.
I prepare something.
She'll be enlightening us tonight as well. That's good. Thank you. Welcome here, both of you. All right, the public health budget. Obviously, our year-over-year changes were another department where they were less than last year by the tune of almost $110,000, which was good to see, and that is certainly a result. Your revenues were up $71,514. Your expenses were down $38,000. So the combination of growing revenues and decreased expenses led to that $109,000 year-over-year decrease, which we all commend you for. Just a couple of little things that stuck out to me within those numbers that I'd like to ask you. One of the largest line item increases in revenue is education handicapped children, 61,000 of the 71,000. Anybody like to explain, you know, that increase?
Unfortunately, we have an increase in our preschool, children with special education needs preschool program.
Okay.
That is the tuition rate that is set by the state and the school. I have no control over that. I can tell you that NISAC, at the beginning of last week, it was a hot button topic for counties as a whole. We are seeing an increase in children who are requiring special education services through our school districts. I know it's not popular, however, it is our duty through the state to service disabled children at the cost.
Okay. So that's kind of a mandate.
That's an unfunded mandate.
Okay. I'm set with questions there. Did anybody else have any questions before we look at the worksheet here?
Do you have to be concerned about Ebola?
No, no, please just don't go to the Congo, and don't travel to any third world countries, and you should be okay.
So we have a $72,000.
No, oh no, that's mislabeled.
Yes,
I
that
believe
is,
it's been fixed. Well, right, Tom?
Yes.
That is, it used to be called the Ebola grant. We got a new opiate grant last year, and we slid that into that same line. So that's now an opiate grant. It's not an old line.
Good. Glad to hear that.
You see, we do look at the fine print.
I already emailed you on it, he said.
Okay, thank you. Also, while I have you too, mental health.
Yes.
I know it says public health here, but mental health, there was a slight increase, about 61,500 year over year. I noticed in mental health, my fellow legislators is cost center 17, found on page 24. I noticed some, revenues were down 547, something like that. Expenses were also down about 486, but the net effect still led to an increase. Can you give us some insight, please, into what caused the revenues to go down 547 some odd thousand?
So the budget, when we get our budget from OASIS and ONH and OPWDD, it's a projection, and we get it not during times of when our budget season is. So we typically get it at the end of the year after our budget is already done, so we need to make our best guess efforts. As you know, throughout the year, I do my best to advocate with the state agencies for more revenue. So sometimes our revenue will go up. We were awarded a $150,000 peer initiative program for OASIS to combat the opiate epidemic. However, we all know when we gain something, we lose something. So on the backside of that, we also have to pay for forensic mental health patients who have been sentenced to a forensic facility. So sometimes we will get large bills from the state, which we are responsible for. Again, an unfunded mandate on the county dime. I believe a few years ago, we had one inmate I came to several times. It was a $350,000 cost to the state. At this point, we don't have a ton of forensic inmates in our facilities, so we're fortunate in that. But we still are responsible for those expenditures. We also, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do think this is important, our assisted outpatient treatment program, which is our AOT line item. We are responsible for paying legal fees and travel fees for the inmates to get to and from court and for legal representation.
Okay. So obviously there's a direct cause and effect relationship between the revenues being down and their related expenses being down as well.
Just to interject quickly, I think if you look at the resolutions last year, at the beginning of this year, you'll see I did a resolution that fixed the revenues because they weren't right. Once we actually got the state aid letters from all nation OASIS, we did a resolution, we fixed those numbers.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions regarding, before we look at the budget worksheet here, public or mental health that they'd like to ask our department director? We're all set on that? Okay. All right, and then let's go to our budget worksheet and go to the second page. And you'll see a grouping of public health proposed amendments and one mental health proposed amendment. You were here for the sheriff's turn with these accounts, so why don't you guys just break into song here and explain each one of those line items and your particular need for them.
Absolutely. As far as office supplies, that's fine. That's a manageable cut. We have no issue with that. Most of our office supplies and computer equipment are grant funded, and those are written into our grants that we review extensively with the county executive, and he signs off their two signatories. So once we have done the budget modifications for each grant, if we need additional office supplies, those are approved. So that's not an issue.
So you can live with that?
I can live with that.
Okay.
Absolutely. The medical supplies, at this point, I can live with that cut. That's not going to impact us greatly. However, I just want to caution you again, as the sheriff said, if, God forbid, we get a measles outbreak, which is now hitting Sullivan County and moving up, that may be an area where we have to come back to you and ask you for some more funding. But God willing, that won't happen, so we can actually look at that cut at this point as well.
Okay, excellent. Program specialist.
So I'll start and then I'll turn this over to Connie so she can explain the exact line items because unfortunately I don't have a copy of those. But the program specialist and the program public health program coordinator, those are grants. So what we did was the $6,471, we took that out of contingency funding, so we took that out of county share, and we applied that to a grant. So if we cut that, then we're cutting the grant, and it would have, that salary would have to go back
So
into,
there's no new position?
that's not a new position.
So there's absolutely no new people coming in?
In that position, no. That is a person who is already in the position. We just shifted it from county money to apply it towards a grant.
Okay, Cheryl, we can wipe that one out. Program Specialist, CCS 6471. Thank you. All right, next.
The next program, the Public Health Program Coordinator, as we said earlier, we received $73,000 as part of the OD2A, which is the Opiate Overdose Awareness Program. So that program coordinator, that $20,000 is the other part of a part-time position that we have open. So if we take that $20,000 out of the budget, then we are saying that we don't have the capacity to make a full-time position as a program coordinator, and then we would lose that $73,000 grant money that we are guaranteed for the next 3 to 5 years.
You also said the magic word, opioid. I think it's something on everybody's mind here that we're often talking about amongst ourselves too, various resolutions that come by, but that's my opinion.
And I think, to your point, Legislator Cupp, one of the things that we're looking at when we're talking about the opiate epidemic is we are now moving to an overdose epidemic, because we're not necessarily just seeing opiates at this point. We know that folks are getting crafty. I've been working with the Sheriff's Department on this. Under Sheriff Rust is on my task force, and we are seeing insurgence of methamphetamines, and we are seeing benzodiazepines and alcohol as the new increase in overdoses. So although the grant is called an opiate overdose grant, we have shifted the title to an overdose task force, because we were one of the 16 counties identified. And my fear is if we cut this $20,000 and we aren't able to hire a full-time person, the staff that I currently have cannot meet the needs of the community at this point.
Everybody kind of okay with
And it's
that
100% grant funded.
Well, like I said before, I have no problems with it, but the problem is 2 years down the road when the grant is no longer here, then we pick up the employee. We never seem to, yes, this person's grant funded for now, and then 2 years down the road, there's no more grant funds for that, and we just pick up another employee. So that's my concern. Again,
It's a legitimate concern.
if this is going to be 100% grant funded and the grant runs out, that person knows.
If that does happen, then we would shift the 100% cost of the salary to a preparedness grant. So our emergency preparedness grant has a $53,000 income that we could lose 100% for salary. However, we have not been able to find somebody to fulfill that part-time position and still manage all of the other expenditures. So if that was to happen, the position of the emergency preparedness coordinator at one point was a full-time 100% grant-funded program. We just shifted the costs for computers, supplies, mileage to regular state aidable reimbursable services through our $500,000 base grant.
Okay.
And currently the grant is a 3-year guarantee. He's right, we don't know what will happen after that point, but it is guaranteed for 3 years right now. For the opiate grant, we are guaranteed.
For what year?
2022.
2020 and 2021 and 2022, all those 3 years of grant guaranteed that we will get at least $72,000 for that grant. But the grant also comes with deliverables that have to be met, or we don't get the money, and we're struggling to do that without having a person in that position.
So am I removing that?
Yeah, I think you need to.
And again, if it comes down to it, our preparedness grant that we get as part of a public health department is $53,450. So we would be able to cover the full salary and shift our costs for other expenditures to a different line item.
Our community and our constituency needs this support. I think we would all agree. All right, and how about mileage?
That mileage is part of that grant. So if you look at the 401007, the next one is 401007, 4471. That $2,500 is the mileage that is allocated for that position. So they go hand in hand.
500 or 5,000?
The 5,000.
So it's a pass-through basically?
It is pass-through dollars, yes.
And is it the same with the mental health mileage?
No, that's county money, we can cut that, that's really not a big deal.
Okay.
the 500 we can over.
All right, so Cheryl, why don't we leave the mental health line in?
So we're at page 21, 22, 22.
What's that?
We're cutting page 21, 22.
I'm not looking at it that way. I mean,
I'm removing it from
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. The one mileage we're gonna remove, the other we're gonna leave in.
Yeah.
Okay, the large one, okay. All right, any other questions, concerns, or anything they'd like to run by Sarah or Connie? All right, we're 40%, yes, let's,
They
Isabel.
run a very good department.
Yes.
That's what it is.
I had copies of the grants, everything approved, the telephone number for what now.
I will leave a copy for you to look at, that, I know you and I had conversations with
Yes.
reference to our transportation. Connie has a very nice color code, spreadsheet, so Cheryl, I know, probably can't make colored copies, but things like that.
Man,
That'll be a
So
long
I will just for you to take a more in-depth look at it.
All right, thank you. And thank you for making yourselves available. Thank you very much. All right, next on the block, Commissioner Mead to our budget session. Thank you for making yourself available. Just to orient our fellow legislators here, we're looking at page 11 for the general portion of the Public Works budget. And then, as far as the county road fund, it'll be on page 46. And the road machinery fund will be on page 48, that we will get into here. All right, Eric, year over year, you got, somewhat of an increase. I know, again, it's unavoidable, but that's what we're here to discuss. In your general, I see, salaries are up about, almost 120,000 from 577 to 695 year over year. Any insight you can give into that?
Union contractual.
Contract, and that's the insight I thought you would give us. Okay. All right, and hence the unavoidable part. All right, going down the page there are 4 line items in buildings and grounds. Telephone up 6, light and power up 25, water and sewer up 50, and natural gas up 5. For a total of about 86,000 when it comes to utilities expense. Just presuming that that's just the general increased cost of service, or are you planning on using more energy of any kind for any project, or please explain.
Well, some of the increases as far as light and power, gas, things like that, we did add another building on with the creation of emergency management garage. We don't, there's a little unknown there what the cost is going to be to maintain that garage. Hopefully it won't be outstanding, the lighting shouldn't be that big, but there has been an increase in some utility bills in the county as a whole. Light, power, phone, possibly with the new service that process we looked up, and then I don't know if it's going to be increase, decrease, but myself and my director of finance, we just looked at it, we're just going by the kind of average. You're trying to take aware of kind of hard to National Grid and Verizon and stuff that I don't really have.
Yep.
And like I said, we tried to do it for, we're in third service also.
I mean, this whole section of utilities appear to be, something that it looks like just about everything. Well, no, I was going to say you put in 111 for telephone, and they cut it to 106. 320 for light and power, they cut it to 290. Water and sewer, you put in 100, and they jacked it up to 150. Sean?
That's because of the Town of Glen, Village of Fultonville water issue. If anybody saw it, the water rates in the Village of Fultonville increased by 400%.
Okay.
So,
I knew there would be a good explanation.
so actually we only increased it 50. Honestly, I don't even know if that's even a good.
Okay.
I don't, yeah, based on last quarter's water bill, I don't think it will, but it's when I met with, Matt Ossenford and Sean, we reduced light and power from 320 to 290 so that we can increase the water, put more in water. So
Okay, okay.
we did that in a meeting that we had.
And the gas is up 5, that's probably cost of doing business, huh?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Another line item Sean provided us in general was maintenance and agreements up 13.9. Something of particular interest in there?
Maintenance line 4425?
Yes, sir.
No, actually, I lowered it. I lowered it, to 224.5.
It was 206 last year, 220.
Right, so, I got all my maintenance agreements right here.
Anything come to mind that it was a conglomeration of maintenance agreements, or?
So there's 132,500 alone just for the jail. So Johnson Controls is a big one. Rust Electric, Maximum Security Products. It says that just for the jail alone is 132,500. The remaining buildings for the county, this building, court, etc., annex, DPW is 64,500.
All right, so it's contractual.
Yeah, it's all contractual. 92,000 between the other buildings. The only thing that was removed from my budget that I submitted was Northland Telecommunications because of the new phone system.
Okay.
I removed them from my budget.
All right. Okay.
4,500.
And buildings and grounds equipment up 23 from 500 to 23.5. 225, 7180, 225, 2255.
Tractor grounds and equipment. I had 0 on mine. 2255, 16 points.
7180.
7180.
Oh, 7180, that's White Path.
Okay.
What is, so the White Path, 2255, that is for a new, mower, tractor with a sidearm mower for mowing the bike path.
And you need one.
If we want to keep mowing the bike path and then keep counting on it, we do it.
Okay.
We get any reimbursement for that?
We get nothing for maintaining the bike path.
All right. Any other questions for Eric on the general fund of the DPW? Hearing none, we'll move to the county road fund, page 46. All right, county road fund, Sean had salaries going up of about 37,140. They're all over the place here. I mean, it's on these 2 pages, 46 and 47. Traffic control up 5128. Highway administration up 2,664. Maintenance and road bridges salaries there up 26,348, and then another 3,000 under hourly employees, other government highways. So contractual.
Well, yeah, and then like I said, some of the highway administration, we use CHIPS money to offset a lot of our labor, all of our overtime, and that for highway, so you don't see as big as an increase with highways as you do with buildings and grounds.
Okay.
But yeah, they are all our
Union.
traffic controls, all union related.
Okay. All right, traffic control supplies and stripes up 3, and road striping up 1 for a total of 4. I mean, that's just cost of doing business, or what?
Well, the extra $3,000 for construction and maintenance supplies, we've been doing a lot more work with other municipalities. We've been working with Fulton County, been doing a lot with the other villages. We've making their signs for them, the road signs.
Oh, okay.
And I struck a pretty good deal with Fulton County, providing them with signs.
Good.
So we're looking at the revenue to come back in. Hopefully, we're looking at our costs overall, is what we charge for our signs. And we're putting together a program for next year to actually hopefully turn a profit out of that sign shop in hopes to be able to purchase a new printer in the future. Right now we can't, there's certain signs we can't print, like Purple Heart signs things with that high gloss, we can just do the reflective tan with it. So we're looking to broaden our horizons, especially maybe with hopefully a new building.
Do we get a good markup on those or no?
I'm sorry?
Do we get a decent markup when you sell them to somebody else?
We're going to be now. Years past, I think they were just sold at cost.
That's a good sign.
The best there is. Thank you, Duke. Let us stick. Oh, I love that one. All right. And, okay, highway contract, or snow contracts, we know the deal there, that's contractual, so that's up 22,897 year over year. And, fringe benefits up 13,9, almost 14, which, appears to be about a third of your salary increase, which, you know, is typical, for your fringe benefits, so. Onto the road machinery fund. Road machinery fund, revenue's up 105,000, expenses down 44,860. So it's all down really about 150,000 overall, but I was talking with Sean today, and that's really because of the, you know, your own separate fund balance there. We can't use that anymore because it's getting low, the road machinery fund balance, so that's $150,000, you know, change in that budget year over year. But some of the others, salaries are up, hang on, full-time employees up 51,370, equipment up 5,000, or down 5,000, excuse me. Wait a minute, I got brackets here. Down. All right, so salaries are down, equipment's down, and this looks like to me to be a measure of you cutting expenses to backfill that 150,000.
Yeah, we have another employee in the stockroom now compared to prior year once we moved the map store out to help fill that, and we're also eliminated one. Well, I believe it's still on the books, but it's not been filled. One mechanic, we had a part-time position available, or entry-level position, not part-time. So there's still just 3 mechanics. Some of those are union contractual increases.
All right, and down miscellaneous supporting services down 52,000
because of the
okay, and the 45,000 increase in gas and diesel fuel. Cost of fuel?
Yeah, fuel has been up. Diesel fuel has taken a spike. Again, without knowing, you know, where we're going to be, I just try to shoot for a number that'll work.
Okay. All right, and the fringe benefits down 27.5. Correct. So, what? My glasses aren't working. Yeah, they're up. Sorry, 27.5. So, then that's because of salary increases, correct?
Correct. Right. And also to fuel legislators, we've also taken on some other accounts. The school's been using our fuel more. So, as other agencies use it, there's a reimbursement there.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Commissioner Meade on these 3 separate budgets of his? Okay. Hearing none, let's go to the budget worksheet here, and. We got 3 proposed amendments to his budget. The last 3 lines on page 1 and the first 3 lines on page 2. So Eric, if you'd like to.
And then there's 2 more under that.
Yes, under the budget officers. So Eric, you want to?
Okay. So 2. I'm sorry. Here we go.
Yeah.
So 1622.250 technical equipment, those are backup batteries that we purchase for the jail on a yearly basis. So that's pretty much contractual. If there's only half the money, we only buy half the batteries.
You only spent $1,100 so far this year.
Yeah, because they're purchased at the end. They'll be spent at the end of the year.
Okay. Take that one out, please, Cheryl.
What's that?
Can't turn half the lights on.
That's up to him. Power goes out, those don't work, all the lights are off.
Not the doors open.
Next one down.
Water and sewer, again,
Wasn't John,
there's just, there's an unknown of what's gonna happen with this 400% increase, with the village, and that, the rate was up because of what's happening there.
but hasn't John indicated that he thinks it's gonna come down? I talked to
He
John,
may have indicated to you or Mr. Hasford, but I have not had any conversation with him.
he thought it was gonna come down at least half.
Well, if that does, that'd be great, because I see what the last quarter's bill was for up there to the jail facility, and it was astronomical compared to what we paid previous
From
quarter.
3,000 to 12,000.
So, I mean, if you choose, you wanna leave it that way, bear in mind, if I'm back here in August saying, we need to look at something for the remainder of the year, and if Chairman Hedwell believes it's gonna come down, I'm fine with it.
All right, well then let's leave that one in.
So you're thinking the last bill was $12,000 for the month?
It was about $10,000 higher than the previous quarters,
So if it was
what, just for that facility.
So if it doesn't come down, you're talking $144,000 for the year.
Roughly, yeah, that's depending on water consumption.
But the supervisor for the town thought that he was negotiating a deal with the mayor of Fultonville to get it down to at least 50% of what it was. Because they indicated that even the people out there in that district can't afford that, the increase that they gave them. What happened is they lowered the sewer and water rates for everybody in the village, and now they've increased it for the town and the people out of the district. And realizing that they, don't wait too far.
All right, well, we'll go with your insight on this one, Chairman. We'll leave that one in there. Property rental?
Property rental, basically, we've just been holding the line on that for the past few years. You know, that's everything that we do for all the buildings, whether it be painting, floor, tile, whatever, windows, glass, everything at the jail. To take a reduction, it's pretty much tied the hands of what buildings we're going to maintain. Lawn, things we do with lawn, roofing, fire security. There's $11,000 in here for fire security, $20,000 electric, plumbing, HVAC. I have also $18,000 just in outside vendors that are hired that are paid out of that money. And $20,000 for maximum security products, which is all used at the jail. So there's a big portion of this that comes out of this money just for the jail alone.
Why are we talking about property rental?
Yes.
Why is that description?
Property, the DPW owns the buildings, basically, and every other department rents the building space from the county or from the DPW.
The full title of that number is property rent lease repair. So most of the things that he's discussing are on the repair side, it's not the rent side.
What did you budget last year,
Same.
And 150, right?
We need to go up.
What's the year date?
88,000.
Can you live with $10,000 less?
We'll do our best to work with whatever you want to take. That's,
All right.
I do my best to try to hold the line. If we don't expend it all in 1 year, that is our goal. But, sadly, DPW isn't in a position to make it money. We try to maintain everything. What's that?
Where are you here today?
I'm sorry.
Here today?
88,000.
Let's go with the legislator Bertel's recommended, put on a 145 there. And 10, about a 10.
So it'll be 15 left.
50. 15, sorry.
That's
All right, next, Eric.
Maintenance agreements, I believe we touched on it a little while ago, because I have 130
It's,
$132,500 alone at the jail in maintenance contracts, and another 92,000, that's with Northland that was in there that I removed, so those are all contractual maintenance agreements that we had in place.
remove that one, please, Cheryl. It looks like that's all, total of contracts is the amount.
Maintenance agreement.
Yes.
Then I believe I put in for, I believe the budget reflected that at $220,000.
Okay. Next one down.
Professional services, so that's where I cover all my expenses for if I need to bring an engineer in to review a bridge, if I get a bridge red flag from New York State DOT, I have to bring firms in to check if there's if there's any scouring in the bridge, or if there's a defect in the bridge deck, they come in, and there's an expense that goes along with that. When I came into the office, that expense was at $60,000. We've lowered it down to 30, it stayed in there. Architect firms, we'll bring them in for doing things on the building.
I'm okay with get rid of it. What about anybody else?
we only spent $14,000 this
With the contract I have with GPI Engineering on Switzer Hill Road, that money will be spent by November, December, the remainder. So I have, it's a $24,000 contract with them alone, just on redoing that bridge, or that, under that
All
road.
right, we'll get that one out of there for you, Commissioner. And what are these Comfort Tex drapes and blinds, or?
Every, about every month we get requests for replacing drapes and blinds. I won't mention offices that request it, but
Maybe some.
Not me.
we just recently had to transfer some money over into that line item to install some blinds
All
in
right.
a certain office. You can remove it, I don't care. We always just have to send a budget transfer over to Matt for him to approve, because the auditing office will not allow me to pay for drapes or blinds out of any other line other than that one, because it's there. So that's why we threw $500 in it.
Cheryl, remove it, we'll live with the, I was gonna say, we'll live with the budget transfers, because then you're finding money within your own budget to pay for it.
That's fine. My finance director threw that in. What do you think? I said,
So we're moving that
fine.
Yeah, let's remove it.
I prefer just to take the blinds down.
You guys get it.
Okay.
What department head do you refer to if you tell me who it was?
I'll raise my hand.
It's all I'm saying.
I'll raise my hand. There were no blinds, they broke, you couldn't close them.
Saves on energy costs, so it could be there.
Yeah.
All right, and Commish, and I think you may need the help of our county treasurer on these as well. On the third page, the road machinery fund and interfund transfer changed from 251 up to 326, or an increase of 75,000. And Sean?
Well, this is a proposal of legislator Headwell to put some vehicles back in his budget. And the reason that we have to keep the DM budget balanced, so that's why you have that adjustment to my budget. Because there would be an increase of the transfer to the DM fund.
So the two offsetters are, I mean,
The net effect for the DM fund is zero, because you're increasing revenue and increasing the expense.
Okay. So, I mean, but there's three line items there. So the actual motor vehicle equipment is the expenditure of it, correct?
Correct.
And the other two is just an inter-account transfer.
Correct.
All right, what's the consensus here, gentlemen?
Well, that's, the reason I bring this up is because the last couple of years, we cut the money out of the budget, and then we turn around, we purchase vehicles through the capital reserve project, the fund. The last thing I want to do is again continue paying for vehicles through the capital reserve, for vehicles that are already gone. I mean, because we're paying for it all the time. We're gonna buy the vehicles, let's put them in the budget, buy them from the budget, and not cut them here and buy them for the fund. And I think Eric can explain that how this really isn't a huge cost. I mean, he has the 75,000, but what we're gonna get.
Well, there is several vehicles that should be replaced. We're running that are, 9, 10 years old and beyond. There was also a vehicle I had in there for veterans agencies to help take a van that they have. And the numbers that I ran, that legislator Edwell asked me to run, over a 10-year period by replacing vehicles after we hang on to them for 10, 12 years, I only took a couple of them because you don't want to sit here all night and listen about all the vehicles. But for instance, one vehicle that was 9 years old, when it was purchased new, it was $28,600. Total cost that went into this truck while the county owned it was $12,000, and it cost $31,000 to replace it. So you're losing money on these vehicles by keeping them for 12 years. Another vehicle he had was the same age. Total in labor and maintenance that went into it was $13,000 on a $28,000 vehicle initial purchase. Kept for just over 10 years. Sold for under $5,000 at auction and it cost $31,600 to replace it. A vehicle that I just replaced, that I purchased when I started here in 2017, my highway director's vehicle. Ran that vehicle from February 2017 until just 3 weeks ago. I traded that vehicle for over $25,000 with 46,000 miles on it and only put $1,000 in it in tires. I paid for that truck brand new off of proceeds we got from the auction was $6,000. So in a 3-year time, the truck stayed under warranty, the tires aren't warranty issued.
So that's more or less proving your point, the need to recycle these things a little sooner. Value.
You could put, I'm sorry to interrupt, you could put $20,000, after you get the vehicles to a point where they've all been replaced, and you keep them less than 50,000 miles on them, you could put $20,000 a year in the budget, you could replace 3 trucks a year for under $20,000.
Understood.
And they all got the latest safety features too, so.
Well, and you keep, for any warranty issues, they go back to the dealer, the only thing we're fixing is.
The 10-year-old truck doesn't have airbags or anything in it, with the newer ones do,
Right. So that was just a comparison I did with vehicles. As far as, the $75,000, my original budget was $100,000 more than that because legislator Hedwell had me to put in for the sheriff's cars. He asked me to put in for every department's vehicle, minus DSS.
Yeah.
And
whatever happened to the program where we were going to lease all these vehicles?
when I started running the numbers, Mr. Sweet, I felt as though I could do the program just as well, if not better, and save the county more money based on the numbers that he gave us. So I canceled all discussion with the gentleman, and I ran my own numbers and decided that, as a taxpayer, I didn't find it
Advantageous to go that route.
correct.
Thank you.
All right. Yes.
Just wanted to add a little piece to this discussion. I haven't even had a chance to talk to Eric about it yet, but I had a conversation with Alex today, and we participated. We passed some resolutions to be a climate smart community. Along with that came some grant money, and we have enough money for a charging station and 3 vehicles, fully paid for by grants. So that's going to be something that will be coming down the pipe. He's checking to see if we can get vans, which would solve our veterans van issue of them having a smaller van. They would be able to make it to Albany and back. So that's just another piece we're looking into, and this goes back to your point earlier, trying to find resources wherever possible to fit, help with our needs. So hopefully we could potentially have 3 new electric vehicles coming online.
Okay.
Relatively soon.
Thank you, Executive Vice President. All right, so what's our general view on...
With this purchase, Eric, that we're looking at here, are we going to be really close to having the fleet set to kind of get through this revolving, or are we still going to have some other vehicles still?
Right now, there are there are 4 remaining trucks that are 8 years and older. And there is 1 rotating van that the department has that I won't even allow it to go out for other departments to use because it's just, I don't feel it's safe.
Dangerous.
For somebody to take it all. We just use it in the department, for us, building the building. So it's been basically full.
So I'm assuming on the $75,000, you're just talking pickup trucks.
Yeah, there's, I had it for 2 trucks, and looking into a veteran's van, and there was also 2 trucks and a box truck. The yellow box truck, and I'm going to repurpose the yellow box truck we currently have into a guide rail repair truck for the highway department. That truck is about 7 years old, 6 or 7 years old, for the amount of use it would get in the highway department, outfitting it with a generator, for the amount of calls we get with guide rails. I could repurpose the truck and hang on to it for another 5 years.
Well, what's your plan for the 4 older trucks?
They would go to auction, and I would.
No, I meant the 4 replace trucks that are 8 years old or older.
Those would go to auction, and they would be replaced with new trucks.
Not this year, or?
Well, if this was to go through, yes, they would be ordered, once the state contracts are awarded,
Oh, okay.
probably March, April.
So it might get us going here in a pattern that you described, where we don't have to finance this, through bonds, we don't have, I mean, we can rotate these things in if we move forward with this particular amendment.
Yeah, like I said, and then that number would come down, also, as well as our maintenance.
Okay.
And our, would come down as well,
Sure.
vehicles over time.
Sure, so.
If I may, while we're discussing, I'm just curious, I mean, Eric and I work very well together. Should I continue to budget my own vehicles, or is Eric gonna manage the fleet? I mean, him and I have talked about it, and I don't think it matters either way.
Well, it's my understanding that sometime around the time of July, that was going to be the strategy, correct? That the administration was gonna have all vehicle purchases go through DPW because of his affinity for that, or?
Yes, and most of them, I think the sheriff is a little different, and like we talked about before, that his budget does have some revenue in it, and we're probably gonna need to replace 1 a year, so we better get used to just having 1 a year in his budget, and, but I'm 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think, it's important that we stay on top of it. I agree with the discussion, but I think Eric and the sheriff have a great enough relationship that they're gonna work it out either way, but as long as we have 1 in the operating budget for the sheriff, I think was the big point.
Okay.
But if you talk about Eric's plan right now, we're gonna replace a lot more than 1. That's why I'm intrigued.
No, I understand. And again, we've been trying to play catch up, and we're almost getting there, and that's the good thing. We're certainly a lot better off than we were 5 years ago when everything was old and everything was breaking down, and there hasn't been a capital investment in it for a period of almost 10 years. So, we're getting to a better place for sure.
Treasure bomb.
Like, just to elaborate on Matt's point, the reason that we took the vehicles out of DPW and put them in the sheriff's is because we're specifically talking about patrol cars for the sheriff.
Right.
And like I said, I don't, my personal feeling, I don't think intermingling the county fleet with patrol cars is a good idea.
Right, they're a little different than vans and trucks, and,
I think DPW is equity retention, keeping the money before it depreciated so much that we're losing the equity.
yeah. All right, so, I think we're at a point where we can make a decision on this.
I just have one more.
Sure.
Are you looking like at the wheel loaders and things like that too? I know a couple of the townships have purchased or leased basically and are able to keep them for a short period of time, couple of years, trade them in and almost pay nothing for a new one.
Yeah.
Are you looking into stuff like that too for your bigger equipment?
Yeah, so I'm looking at it with the 10-wheelers, with the dump trucks as well. The dump trucks we tend to keep probably for 10 to 15 years. Based on the amount of miles that we put onto them, we would see a loss. The front end loaders, I am with this year's capital project money that we have, in providing the capital project passes, and there is money for equipment there. I do have on the radar for a front end loader replacement. And, to touch on that, I did that with the town of Florida for years. And for numerous years, we replaced 2 front They were $195,000 loaders. The state contract, we bought them for $150,000. Legislator Wilson, you sat on the board with me at the time, and the following year we traded those vehicles in or even sold them to auction for $15,000 more than we paid for them.
Because you're buying state contract and
And we're selling them at, right, at today's price to a contractor.
so it's kind of a win-win. So you were actually purchasing, not leasing?
We purchased.
Okay.
Yep, they were Caterpillar loaders, we purchased directly through CAT. Like I said, they're $190,000 loaders, the contract we're getting for $150,000. We use them for 1 year, the warranty ends on that, we were getting $165,000, $170,000 a piece for them. Putting that money back in my highway, my equipment, I'm making money buying another truck for the highway superintendent on somebody else's dime. And we're also, I rotate there's 2 pickup trucks in the town of Florida currently. I rotate a truck out every year. The highway superintendent gets a new truck every year. And the other truck goes down to the guys for plowing. And I rotate that truck out every year. It costs me maybe in the neighborhood of $3,500. I can't maintain that truck for less than that, so I buy them state contract. And he puts a lot of miles on it. So the program makes sense when it is. But you can't say, yes, we're gonna go this route, and you get everything new, and then just say, no, we're cutting, we're not putting any money, any equipment for 6 years, 8 years, because then you're right back to square one. So if you're gonna commit to it, you have to keep it moving, but that's your judgment decision.
All right, well, I think we're at that point now. We've had a lot of discussion on this. What do we want to do with it so we can move forward here? I'm in favor of leaving it in under the circumstances and the description. But, I mean, we need a consensus here. Leave it in? Leave it in? On the map? Yes. All right, let's leave that one in there. Thank you. All right, Eric, thank you for your time, your input, your resourcefulness, managing the budget.
We gentlemen appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Harold.
Yes. Well, we will take a 5-minute recess. All right. We welcome you back to this evening's budget session. And we welcome Commissioner Mike DeCommand here from DSS. Thanks, Mike, for making yourself available, as we said to all the others. I'm sure you're getting an idea of how the drill's going here tonight, so let's start off on this departmental year-over-year or cost center year-over-year report. DSS came in about just under $386,000 higher year-over-year. However, we do know that there was quite a bit of DSS positions that the administration eliminated from the budget that may have been carried year-over-year that aren't filled at the moment, correct? Somewhere in the neighborhood of 330,000, correct, Tom? Or so, 333, something like that? Looking at your, and everybody here in the legislature, we're starting on page 25 in your booklets, where DSS starts. And just, Mike, a couple of questions I have in your revenue category. I see that, I'm going to read the line item over here, right? I'm going to highlight this one good. Repayment, family assistance, up 50,000 from last year from 350 to 400. Repayment safety net assistance up about 25,000 from 2 to 25. But a big one that's down is child care. Last year, $2,172,000. This year, budgeted for $1,008,000. So if we do that, and that's for actually a net decrease in revenues, and I'm sure some of it's contractual, but I'm sure you'll explain that. But net decrease in revenues overall of about $281,000 year over year. So Mike, can you give us a little insight into the increase in the repayment family assistance, the repayment net, safety net, and the large decrease in childcare.
The repayments, that's a function of, they found jobs and maybe there was some overlap in their case.
Okay.
And then when it's coming back to them, it might be coming back through, they're coming back to our case. Where we brought them to investigators go out and saw maybe the family composition was exactly right. And so the repayment they paid reference to us. And that goes back into the general fund. Childcare, I believe childcare is down because the economy's good. We're at the lowest unemployment rate that we've seen, I think, in 15, 20 years. We're at 4% in July. That's very low. And so the jobs are out there, people are getting to go to work, and in that case, they're paying for their own childcare. And so it is tracking down.
I was going to just ask you, doesn't that create more of a need for childcare if they're able to handle it on their own?
They get full-time jobs. Some of
Yes.
them are out there now, and I think they're able to handle it. Family connections who are doing that. That's sort of what we'd like to be doing, is look for family or friends, neighbors.
And I would imagine, that's a good thing, correct? I mean, okay. All right, some of the year-over-year expense changes that were outlined by Sean. Total full-time employees, we're down 58,252 year-over-year. I don't have any one line item within there. There's so many people that your department employs, but any insight into that number, Mike?
We've done some reductions over the last few years. We've reduced 2 positions, 2 direct positions into a deputy commissioner position. So that was a council effort. We consolidated that. We've also moved some to part-time positions, which is kind of a trend we'd like to see more of, although it's difficult to hire part-time. Just because people are looking for full-time, they're looking for benefits too. So we had a hard time with some of the part-time positions, although we just recently filled one, which I think will come up in the discussion.
And obviously that may lead to an increase because your part-time line item was up about 32,000, so if they're shifting. Yes, Treasurer Bowerman.
Just to elaborate a little bit on that, the full-time salaries are down because of, it's a combination of the elimination of some of the vacant positions. The eliminations are offset by the CSC contractual raises too, so for the remaining people.
That's the net effect of that.
Yes.
Okay. Also see, Mike, other compensation, I don't know, it's kind of a general category, up 30,000. Sean, do you know what it is? Mike, do you know what that is? It is 6010-1125. It's under Social Services Administration. Well, they all are, I suppose. I don't know, it's just one that Sean had highlighted for us as a large year-over-year change in the line item, and so that's what I'm asking questions about here. If it doesn't...
I believe that's the comp paid for people that work more than the 35 hours, but less than the 40 hours.
Oh, in between, okay. And any reason it went up 30, Sean? Oh. Sean, any reason in your mind's eye why it would have gone up year over year?
That I don't know.
Okay. Another expense line item, miscellaneous supporting services, was up 102,987. That's line item 4438. One that the treasurer highlighted. Any insight into that?
I don't see where he's highlighted that.
No, he's not highlighted. He highlighted it for us.
For you guys?
Yes. Yes.
Let's see.
It's on page 28.
Yeah.
And it went from 222,663 to 325,650. A six-figure increase worthy of some description here.
A lot of that is the contracts that they have for the different services that they have to contract out for.
Okay.
And I believe in the backup there is a list. There should be a whole list of the different contracts they have.
Okay. So it's a contractual increase. Yes.
We did some contractual increases this year with prevention services. We put caseworkers, actually contracted caseworkers in the schools.
Okay.
4 of them, planning for 1 million.
All right.
Hopefully going to help us reduce some of your foster care costs over time.
Okay.
That's what that is.
And then there was another six-figure increase, temporary assistance for needy families, up about 115,000, 114,732. Anything come to mind why that would need to be increased?
your homeless lines, yeah. Okay, you see homeless year round now. It used to be November to April, now it's year round.
Okay. And then under total social service programs, one of the last items in your budget on page 28, down almost 110,000, 195. Any input on that one? To your knowledge.
Which line is that again?
It's the very last line of your budget.
Yeah.
Social service programs, there's about 10, 12 accounts there that the net year-over-year change is a reduction of a little bit here, a little bit there, but I thought maybe there may be a story that you
So
might
in 6119, is that what you're looking at?
Well, the biggest one change,
6011.
the biggest one change is the reduction in childcare.
Okay.
As you saw the
Yes.
reduction on the revenue side, but there's also a reduction on the appropriation side.
A proportionate reduction.
Okay. One of the big reductions is state training schools. Get out there and
Yeah.
that's children that are placed in OCFS care. They're usually hard to serve children or youth. They're in trouble. They've maybe been arrested. There might be a number of issues going on that we can't serve them here.
Okay.
They go, as we get state training bill every couple of years that hits us, we plan for that. We just paid 2015 this year, so we'll be looking for 2016 this year.
Okay, good, thanks. All right, now any other questions for Commissioner McMahon on the pages of his budget? Yes, Legislator Patel.
Just looking at year-to-date, expense 4453. The budget was 34,425. Year-to-date is 2,620. We're using 8% of that budget.
Say 4453?
4453 is
Postage?
postage, expenditures, maybe it's
It's postage, is that what it is?
The reason that we reduced is because postage, the mail used to go through DSS, it's no longer with them anymore. That's why you saw a big reduction.
But it's still budgeted for, $34,000 this year.
I show it's budgeted for 19 of 34,
Yeah.
and 20 is at 4,000.
4,400.
Because it was budgeted at 19 because the mail wasn't moved until the election fact.
Okay, good. What do you expect as far as mileage this year?
Well, it's on the list of items. Mileage, I think we can reduce a little. I think we want to reduce it down to 7,000. I think we can reduce it to 10,000 because we are really encouraging our workers to use the county vehicles. There's a lot of reasons for that. We have GPS on all vehicles, so for safety and for tracking, it's important. And we don't really want them using them to transport their personal cars to transport children and families.
That's what they're there for, Commissioner.
And
Right.
we push use. The general policy is if a vehicle's available, then they use it. Unless they have a medical doctor that says they can't, they have to have a personal vehicle in order for you to have that. So it's generally working pretty good. I think it's what you see in your mind.
All right, excellent. Any other questions for the Commissioner on his 3 or 4 pages of the budget in the workbook? Yes, Legislator Sweet.
Going back to revenues, in the 2019 adopted budget was $15,930,000. Your request was about 213 more as far as revenue. The executive cut down 493,000 to 15,600. Is that something that you're comfortable with, that number?
I think program-wise, yes.
Okay.
We're seeing some tracking, family assistance is maybe going down. Child care we already talked about. Well, and foster care will also track down. That's your big item. We're really pushing our caseworkers to look for family and relative placement versus going to what's congregate care. It's very expensive. And we'll be forced to do that by federal legislation in 2021. So it's kind of, let's get used to doing it now. It's not a big change for us to do.
Oh, you're welcome, Legislator Sweet. All right, seeing no other questions on the pages of his budget will, sorry.
Am I allowed to ask a question, just as a citizen, is that okay?
I don't,
You would there, public comment.
yeah, public comment.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now let's go to the budget worksheet. And you have them, Commissioner, correct, in front of you?
Yes.
Let's go down the ledger here. First one, CPS caseworker, was put in for $14,325, with a potential cutting it out of the budget here.
So we created the part-time position, caseworker position this year, to try to move that way, and try to get some part-time workers. We felt it was a good need for them, and they could be used to take care of some of the smaller stuff that caseworkers, don't have to waste their time going out in a car to visit somebody, visit a school. The part-timer do that maybe on a weekend. So this position here, this part-time position is still permanent because this person's in a vacated line 384, which was cut. 384 was cut in the executive budget. So now there's a part-time budget, so you're actually cutting it twice. So there's a person in that line.
All right, well, Cheryl, we can remove that line then. Thank you, sir. I don't know what the ING stands for, coordinator.
Investigator.
Investigator.
So this position, the fraud department's gone through a lot of transition in the last 3 years. There was a time when all the employees here were contractual. We had 6, and they're mostly sourced from APD and the sheriff's office. That changed. The Civil Service Commission asked us to look at how we handle contracted employees, and so there was a move to make them all civil service. And in the process of doing that reorganization, we kept three part-time investigators, and we made one full-time investigative coordinator, which is this position. We had a hard time. We hired 2 people for that position for the full-time. Neither one of them stayed very long. So we looked at it and thought, all right, let's go part-time, maybe we can do better. And so we've contracted for this position for the last year. And now we want to make it a part-time coordinator. So this is the person that runs the fraud department. They do all the federal reporting, they do all the state reporting. They work with high-level agencies like the AG, the IG, Inspector General, Attorney General. They work with law enforcement, and they coordinate the functions of 4 employees. So it's a managerial position.
Were any of the positions that were eliminated, the full-time positions?
The full-time, we asked to have the full-time position eliminated. I think it was eliminated on this.
Okay. Was it in the 300 some odd thousand worth of positions that were eliminated? Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what you were going to say, Sean?
Well, yeah, and just to elaborate on this, what Mike was saying, the issue that we ran in with the investigators as far as contractual, we provide them with a desk and an office. They're technically employees. We did get cited by the IRS about 3 years ago for this reason. And, that was part of the remedy that we had to do. We could no longer have contractors performing this service and provide them with an office, computer, and desk. So that's why we had to gravitate these part-time investigators in that office to part-time people.
All right, we can remove Cheryl. All right, motor vehicle equipment, 44K.
We have 14 vehicles. 3 of them are above 100. One's 167,000, one 161, 119. These are current mileage. It's generally a good idea, going back to Eric's discussion on trying to move these vehicles to auction sooner than later. I don't really feel comfortable sending a caseworker to Rochester in a van that's got 168,000 miles. Now with the Land Cruiser, I'd say that's fine. And so we've had a rhythm over the years in trying to replace 1 or 2 each year, look at the high mileage, and also diversifying the fleet. We see some small vehicles in there because our caseworkers don't really need vans all the time. Sometimes their focus, now they don't like Fiestas. Fiestas will never buy them because you can't find them in the snow. I mean, you got to look for them, but you can't find them.
How many vehicles would this be in your mind's eye? 2 or 3?
We'd be probably reducing 2 or 3 out of the budget to auction here. And then we would buy 2. If we buy a car or a van.
Okay. Sean, you guys?
Just so, and I don't know the reimbursement rate, but I know they do expend this through at least through Medicaid and stuff, so There is a reimbursement that would have to be reduced if you're going to make a hole.
Okay.
Again, with 70% reimbursement?
I don't know.
I think it's higher than that. The thing is, the Medicaid funding, Medicaid admin, that funding stream is going away, because the state assumes more of the Medicaid program. I think we're going to lose that, so I would suggest that we use it while we have it. We have used grants. The most recent car we bought this year in 2019 was the Ford Focus. We used SNAP money for that. That was a grant for the budget entirely at 100%.
It's really contingent on what program they run it under,
Right.
determines the reimbursement rate.
I don't think it was more bothered by the $44,000. We'd like to see this car program built into the program and more of their students.
Sounds like you're trying to, yeah, so that's what, I mean, right? I mean,
Wasn't there some discussion of a pilot program for electric cars with grants or something? That was mentioned a few minutes ago.
Matt did mention that, yeah. We would look at that.
But if it was a grant program, would that be a possibility of removing?
The state uses a lot of electric cars.
well, Legislator Patel is wondering if that program could replace the need for this line item, I believe, correct, sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or part of it.
Or part of it, just here.
Yeah, I mean, I would look into that. I would look into the transition to electric cars or some of it, it makes sense.
I know, but I mean.
The question is, are we getting a grant for them?
Right.
Where we have no cost or pass through of some sort?
I mean, it's one thing to say you're gonna work on it and try to eliminate it, but if we need these vehicles and we need to look at this expense now, we can't, you know, we don't wanna cut you short.
Right.
And if that doesn't come to fruition for half or three quarters of next year, you know what I mean, as you research this and apply for these grants and whatnot. What do you think?
Well, I think right off the bat, I think we need another van. I think the van is very important for transport. It's also important that we use these to transport the students to training.
Mhm.
And, you know, so they need use quite a bit.
So can we reduce that to 29,000?
25,000 for them.
Well, you know, I'm not sure what the going rate is for a van.
Yeah, I mean, I think you gotta put, I mean, a van?
We wanted a van.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be 25 to 30, I would imagine, yeah.
I would feel comfortable with, through government contract, with it being less than 30,000, so if we reduce that to
So 29.
to about 14,000.
Wait,
Reduce it to 30,000.
reduce it to 30,000, yes.
I just
Yes.
want to remind
Sure.
gentlemen, that if DSS is going to be transporting children, you might have to look at the national traffic and safety regulations as to what kind of vehicle is able to hold car seats, because they do a lot of removals with children and babies. So that might be something you want to take a look at, because car seats can't be installed in certain vehicles.
Well, hopefully the commissioner.
A minivan you can, as long as they're not captain seats. It's not recommended.
All right, so we're gonna reduce this change from 44 to 30. And, sorry? $14,000 reduction, correct. All right, computer equipment.
We're okay with reduction.
The revenue line item. Sean, do we need to change a revenue line, corresponding revenue line item as well?
Potentially for the vehicles, yes. I don't know, I guess they're gonna have to come back to us with an amount of reimbursement rate.
Okay. Can we leave this as is then? I mean, leave it as we changed it? Okay. Without being worried about that? Okay. All right, Mike, I'm sorry, keep going, computer equipment.
The next two we're okay with. So computer equipment and office supplies, we're okay with your change.
All right, we'll leave those in then. That makes it easy.
Yep.
Professional services.
Okay, I think there's a mistake there. That line, 4421, is leasing and rental. That's our, what we pay for Virgil Health Center. That's the lease there.
What was that release for?
Virgil Health Center, so that's part of it.
That's
4421.
Hold on, I think that's supposed to be 44.
4431. Professional services is 4431. I believe.
No.
Well, the property regulations, there are dollar amounts based on 4421.
Yeah, is it matched to the 4421?
Yes.
Okay.
So that'd be property rent, lease, repair, that's, like Mike said, that's the lease of the mall.
Oh, so we gotta leave that.
So it's a solid cost.
Yeah.
So remove that one.
So we should,
Please remove, thank you, Cheryl. Work program expense?
we're okay with that too.
Be
We're okay with
removed?
that change.
Okay. Leave that one in there. And mileage?
Mileage, I would ask you, as I mentioned before, I'd ask you to maybe consider 10,000 on that instead of reducing down to 7.
I'm gonna, so far this year, you've only used $3,600. There's more vehicles that sat in that parking lot, not used all year long. And we're talking about using more of them, so we should be able to, I mean, I think there were like 2 months where there was 8 vehicles sat, for 2 months with snow on them, 8 or 9 vehicles. So you're saying we're gonna use them more, so the number should even be less.
I think if you look at the mileage chart that I got here, we use those vehicles every day. They go out. If one's deadline, or it's down for a reason, for a recall, or, somebody has that van maybe scheduled for tomorrow, maybe we don't use it, did you go out of town with them? So we try to use them all. I mean, I don't have any mileage here that's static. They're all changing all the
I just don't like when I go by every day and you see them sitting there with snow on them, and your snow days are on the same vehicles for a whole month, they weren't used.
Well, let's compromise with the commission. So what were your thoughts?
I was thinking going to 10,000 instead of dropping all the way to 7.
That should be.
Okay. So, 10
7,000.
and 17. Okay. All right, Commissioner, thank you for subjecting yourself to the gauntlet. Unless there's any other questions, we'll move on to our 5th and final presentation. Nicole, your budget year over year went up 212,001. And if we really look at your appropriations and center in on fringe benefits, we can see that 198,414 of it is health insurance. And so that obviously is the lion's share. It's, we can certainly ask questions about other pages or other line items here in your budget, but you can give us some insight into that. I mean, I'm sure it's something that the rates went up and we have to pay them because we employ so many people and they're covered. So, but going from there.
Right, largely health insurance is out of our control as far as claims are concerned. Doctors go up as far as the cost is concerned. Our administrative fees have remained the same for our MVP, which was the change that we made last year, so that's good. But it's almost impossible to predict the claims being self-insured. So in trying to make that educated decision along with our brokers and our other carriers, we do put an increase in there to try to predict.
And how have you been in predicting that number in the past? I don't know that.
I think
Historically speaking.
Historically, I think we've done pretty well. Last year, for the A fund, we were, we used 97% of what we budgeted.
Okay. Fair enough.
In the A fund, and we used 99% of what we budgeted in the M fund.
Okay.
So, it's fairly close. Of course, you can have a curveball in there if there's a high cost claimant, which I can't anticipate.
No, we can never do that. Some years are better than others, right?
For the coming year, though, I can anticipate, doing claims reviews, I can anticipate the high cost claimants, the known cost claimants.
Okay. All right, well, going from the top of your ledger here, salaries down 23,347. Reallocation to other funds.
There are reallocations to other funds.
Okay.
So largely due to the duties of the individuals in those positions, we felt it more appropriate for them to be spread out over the 3 funds that are contained in the personnel budget.
Okay.
And then also,
Other comp? Yeah.
Other compensation.
Up 15.
Yep, so other compensation is where we generally, if we are negotiating contracts, where we do put some finances, and that's hard to predict. We are currently in negotiations with 2 and 3 of our units, so it's really hard to predict that, and I really rely, working with Sean in trying to do that, but then again, we won't know until we get closer to settling.
All right. FICA's up 9,800, that's in proportion to salaries, I'm sure. Retirement, down 50, that was a curiosity.
That's based on the estimate of our annual invoice we get from the retirement system. So that should be further close number.
Okay. Workers' comp, up about 42,587.
That line was increased for our MS budget, the MS budget, the workers' comp budget went up slightly to accommodate some anticipated sale losses awards that are going to be coming up in 2020. So we have to adjust the budget accordingly.
Okay, and dental, up 18,500 roughly.
Again,
Yeah, same thing. This is, of all the budgets, this is the most contractual in nature.
it is,
Okay.
and the most unpredictable.
Yeah. Just curious, I mean, I didn't even have this on my list of questions, but as I gazed at this, your revenue line items, personnel fees, what are those?
Those fees are, they're what we charge back to Department of Social Services.
Okay. Well, there's an inter-fund revenue there too, like 10,000. I was just curious there. Anybody else have any questions on the personnel, human resources? Yes, legislator Sweet.
Professional services line 4431. 2019 budget was 115.5. You requested 150 and the executive knocked it back to 115. Was there, what was the request for 35,000 more?
Well, we still do have some outstanding land claims, and I do anticipate those to be settled now, so I'm okay with the $115,000. I know we are running short in the line this year, but with the thought of them potentially being settled soon, I think we'll be okay with the 115.
And the other question I had is unemployment insurance. Shouldn't it be gone? Or do you have many people on unemployment right now?
It has been good. It really does. Right now we have less than 5 on unemployment insurance right now.
I just wondered if it was up 10,000 from last year. And what I would think with, I don't know if we're fully employed or not, I guess obviously not.
In the M fund, you'll see, in the M fund and the MS fund, so in the health insurance fund and the workers' comp fund, you'll see a little bit more in the HR financial specialist line. I'm anticipating, and it's actually going to happen, that she is going to be resigning, retiring in 2020. So to accommodate, we had to add in additional money for any payouts for vacation time and for sick time. So you'll see an increase in that line.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, legislator Sweet. Anybody else? No. All right, now I guess there is one line on the budget worksheet which we've re-identified as personnel line item.
Yes.
So, you know what? That's okay, we might as well talk about it since I brought it up here, and we can see what the outcome is there before you reprint this. Miscellaneous supporting services was put in for 7, looks like a budget change request down to 5, a $2,000 cut.
It was 4455 training.
But it should be training.
Training.
Training, okay.
I actually think that number should be.
It's on the first page, I'm sorry, it's the, on the budget worksheet, it looks like it's on page 9, and it is. But it's, instead of county attorney, it should say personnel.
And it should be
And the line item name is?
Training.
Training, okay.
So I actually think that number should be higher. 7,000 is actually pretty low. With the the new regulations regarding sexual harassment training and workplace violence. The training needs to be more comprehensive, which means, and we have to train not just county employees, we have to train volunteers, any contractors that come into the county have to have additional information and resources from the county, which is going to be an additional cost. So I don't even think the $7,000 will cover.
It's gonna be enough.
I think we are absolutely going to need additional funds to take care of this for this year. The other thing is that in previous years, sexual harassment and discrimination training used to be every other year. Now the new legislation is every year, and so we are going to have to continue without the resources to be able to do the training in-house. We do have to contract.
You sold me. I don't know about everybody else, but it sounds like we need that in there. Gentlemen?
Yep.
So, what are we changing?
Take it out.
Take it out.
Take it out.
All right, any other questions for Nicole?
That's a goal.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for making yourself available and making yourself the questions. All right, Cheryl is going to reprint the budget worksheet with some of the dollar adjustments we made and the elimination of some of the line items for expedient copying and collating and stapling job.
At your service.
Yeah. All right. The treasurer wanted us to talk about his, because he wants some of his change too, but we said we're going to wait on it. So, all right, let's start at the top. What we have here should be everything we just amended, plus whatever remained in between. You can see that there are some departments here that obviously are not represented because of the smaller nature, not that that's you know, any form of discrimination, obviously, but we just don't, you know, the big changes in the big budgets is what we focus on. So our first set of amendments are the ones that I discussed at our last meeting on September the 10th regarding budgeting the use of more sales tax for the purpose of using less fund balance. And those are the three entries that pertain to it. If you recall, we were originally budgeting about $30,500. I said, can we do, you know, another 500 there, or 400, because we had 2.9 million of fund balance usage in our first draft, and I wanted to get it down to 2.5. And it appears as though Sean went to 31 million because of the distribution of sales tax to, it's not all our money, obviously. Some of it's got to go to the other municipalities. And that's what those three entries are there. Again, I will reiterate, as I depicted last week and gave you various examples of the history of our fund balance budgeting and usage, coupled with our review that we did in early 18, where we showed that over the last 4 or 5 years, although we were budgeting, you know, 3.7 to 4 million to balance a budget at budget time, we were using on average $1.7 million less. Or $1.7 million or so of it, and based on some amending entries to the DSS budget that Bonadio will be recommending, which will be able to have us pull income out of deferred revenue and recognize it on our actual financial fiscal year-end statement. That usage for the 2018 will move down to about 900,000 of fund balance that we actually used for 2018 when we budgeted about 3.7 or 3.8. So we have a lot of history behind the fact that we conservatively budget. We don't get anywhere near that budget total. By us jacking this to 31 million, we're on pace for 32 this year in 2019 alone, so there's still about $1 million of cushion in there just based on this year's projected results. So I don't think we're personally risking, you know, anything here by budgeting more sales tax, especially for the purpose of offsetting the use of fund balance. We had a little discussion about it on the 10th, you know, with 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But I think I would, you know, again, I would reiterate, like to, as we are doing through this exercise in minutia, now this one from more of a 1,000-foot view, let us look at, you know, purposely budgeting less fund balance And I don't think we're going to have any risk in meeting our sales tax at all, so, and if God forbid some calamity happens, then we would have to do it. But history teaches us that we are certainly not moving in that direction. So with that, if there's any other discussion on this, I'd certainly welcome it.
One quick question.
Absolutely.
Sean, do we know what I'm trying to get to, there's been quite a few solar projects in Montgomery County in the last year and a half. And it's my understanding that we should be receiving tax revenue from the equipment base, because if the panels and whatnot are delivered within Montgomery County should receive the sales tax. Does that sound right?
It does.
Okay. So I'm wondering how much, if there's a way to find out how much of a boom we're seeing from those projects, not contributed to just the economy. You see what I'm saying? Because, there's some pretty good sized projects that have been in place. So I'm just wondering.
Similar
Full County had a similar discussion, so I'm just wondering, it's sales tax regardless, but I'm just saying, is that something that, we saw a big raise for 2019, 18, 19, and now because there are not as many projects coming in, would we see a reduction?
It's difficult to tell because of the way the state sends out our receipts of what is correct. But
hard to break down. I can't figure it would be.
Yeah, but the project in Kennedy hasn't begun, and I think it's part of the agreement that was exempted. But I would say that some of the smaller projects definitely impact there. But I would also say for next year, you're hearing about a lot more solar projects. It would be more of a long-term concern that if all of a sudden we see it fall off. But from what I've heard, there's multiple smaller, not the Article 10 ones, but they're being discussed around the county. So I feel good about it for next year, but I think maybe we can look into it a little bit longer.
Just something to keep an eye on, because it's a potential for big
Yeah.
windfall of sales tax, and then if that goes away, then you're not gonna.
You mean on their purchase of the equipment?
Right, if there's a big, like the one coming in on 30 South coming in New Hampshire, those are two big projects that generate a lot of sales tax.
Very good point, Legislator Sweet, which also reminds me, our figures don't include any internet tax revenue either, which the state's predicting conservatively we may end up seeing about 300,000 or so, I think. For that year. Yeah.
Well, it's a total of 500,000, but then you have to deduct what the state did this year is they said they cut the aid to municipalities payments, and instead of funding it through the state budget, they funded it through the county sales tax with this internet sales tax, which is a bunch of you-know-what. So that takes a piece off of it, and then you also by the time it gets down to what the net is going to be for the county, you're at the number Mike is saying, or legislative.
That's their estimate. It's in a couple of so. Number 9.
We had some discussions about some unanticipated revenue in social services. And where is that going to hit? And do we have the ability to use that to offset some costs in next year's budget?
I won't know what that is until I actually see some entries from it.
But you did estimate it to be about $1.7 million.
But that would not be additional revenue.
It's an accounting entry.
It's an accounting.
We had a
It's not
receivable.
additional cash that we pay.
We had an $8 million receivable at the end of the year.
Correct.
Which was in deferred revenue. By virtue of them scrubbing that and saying, you were entitled to $1.7 million more in income from DSS, you will take it out of deferred revenue, put it into income, which will fall to the fund balance, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it's not cash, it's a balance sheet accounting entry. Any other questions on this one? It's a set of 3. We're going to straw. We're going to go around the room on each of these after discussing them. And we'll do it in a group. We'll do county executive in a group, emergency management, et cetera, et cetera. All right, Cheryl?
Legislator Sweet. What are we voting on?
The first 3.
Right, to keep or to remove?
No, to keep.
Okay. Legislator Sweet.
Aye.
Legislator Diamond.
Aye.
Chairman Hedwell.
Aye.
Legislator Wilson.
Aye.
Legislator Duchessis.
Aye.
Legislator Hepp.
Aye.
Legislator Isabel.
Aye.
Legislator Patel.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, moving on to the county executive. Matt, you saw the format. Can you go down through these 5 lines for us and talk about these proposed cuts?
Sure, first 2 I can live with, it's not going to be a problem. The last 2, which are the additions to soil and water and Cornell Cooperative, again, I'm not, yeah, I'm going to get there, save the best for last. Those 2, you're adding, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's more of how it shakes out as to where we are. I believe the soil district was, we were put at what they did last year, and they did request an additional, it was like $5,600. These 2 organizations do incredible work in the county. So I'm not, if the legislature wishes us to put that back in there, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. I think I'm most passionate about the Office for the Aging, and I wanted to discuss that just for a minute, if I may.
Sure.
You'll remember last year you were provided a handout. We're going to get a little bit more information as to the exact number of rides. But we've had a discussion about, the City of Amsterdam and some of the municipalities that, given, their situations, are having for Amsterdam, for example, $146 would be for a $100,000 house. For most people, that's not a huge deal, but the people that it hits the most are seniors on fixed income, and that's difficult. Well, last year, you'll remember, we funded OFA for this part-time worker to help get this transportation program off the ground. Transportation is obviously a huge issue in this county. Well, it has gone really well to the point where they actually could use that person to be full-time. And so that's where you see that $15,000 increase to their budget. There's no bennies, but it will absolutely make a difference in those people's lives that just need a ride to work. I had a conversation with Legislator Isabel about this morning. He was very excited about this idea. But, that's something I really think is the right thing to do, especially given who exactly is going to help. So I feel very strongly about that one. As far as the cuts that are in there, we can make those work, no problem. Quite frankly, even if you want to take another 5 out of professional services, if we can get that Office for the Aging in there, I could live with that as well. But I really don't have any issues with any of these for the executive budget.
So, you're saying you can live with the cut on the first one.
Yep.
You can live with the cut on the second one. You preferred it on the final 2 to leave it where it is. I mean, leave it where it was originally budgeted, or where it was the increase.
I'm 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If the legislature's wishes to support it, I'm not going to veto it. I'll tell you that for sure. So
soil and water has done a lot.
And the amount, both of those organizations are tremendous.
I spoke to Corey, and if you look back through his budget, it's been the same for the last 10 so years. He receives money from the state to do projects, and he's been, as a good manager, he's been keeping his line pretty much steady, using some of that money to run the office. It's getting to the point now where if he continues to do that, there are going to be fewer and fewer projects that he's able to do for the county. He just did the seeding up on Hickory Hill. He's over on Snooks Corners doing the same thing. I'm sure it's talking about a lot.
They do a lot of work. Yeah.
So you're getting much more than $5,600 return out of it.
And really, it was for the purposes of the executive budget as we laid out our goals. I felt it was appropriate to try to keep everybody at what they were or below, and then have this discussion at this time when all the bigger pieces are starting to come together and we can see what we can do. All 3 of them are very worthwhile endeavors, there's no doubt about it, but that will provide a good return.
And I think, we're all aware of it, but I also, am involved in the hospital and board, and our population, our demographic is, the hospital is 70% Medicare, Medicaid. That gives you an idea, which means probably 70% of our population is an aging population that needs this service.
And that's the,
if it's any indicator,
I got the same thing with the GABAC calls and the numbers we ran through. I mean,
Well, speaking of that, is that something that we're going to be looking into?
Yeah, so well, we've been looking into it, and we brought everybody together, and I would say at this point, I to the folks at GAVAC that, you know, if you would like us to consider a proposal, I would have to have it in short order and have to give it to the board. I have not received such proposal or such request. I will say that my assessment, and I'll say this is my opinion, that while ambulance service is stressed, and certainly stressed throughout upstate New York, I think we're at an issue now where it's going to be an issue of response times rather than an outright closure of GAVAC. So I think that discussion will be ongoing, but we're not at the point now where there's anywhere in this budget or a request to fund, or subsidize a portion.
And it's mostly because of the reimbursement rates.
That's reimbursement rates and our demographics.
Right. So, I mean, they're getting cents on the dollar in some cases.
Yeah, and, I think I would say to their credit for raising the issue and getting it out there, that's a good thing because it is going to be an issue eventually, but do I think we're going to be dealing with a situation where we don't have ambulance service as an unexpected surprise in the near future? I don't think we're there.
Because Fulton County has already, I think, they've already contracted with GAVAC, and I know Wells and they're all, because of the fact that they can't maintain a service on that.
Yeah, and Legislator Patel and the chairman attended that meeting. We all talked, we had a good understanding. It was a healthy discussion, for sure, and we had all the stakeholders there, Amsterdam Fire Department, GAVAC, the other company, AMR, St. Johnsville. It was a very good discussion, but again, I haven't received a request for funds, and I believe it's more of an issue at the moment of can GAVAC keep up the response times? And then that becomes, well, if the municipality would like to have a better response time, well, that's an issue they need to discuss with GAVAC. So that's kind of where it stands now until I hear it different.
Legislator Patel, you had a question here.
Yeah, Matt, could you go over the Office of the Aging? I support it, but so I understand it better.
Sure.
Outline what the program.
Yeah, and I'll just paraphrase this briefly. So the demand for the OFA senior transport is growing. You have a part-time person that does 21 hours a week, but that person is having trouble recruiting volunteers because she's scheduling all the rides. It just can't do the work. So basically what they said is we need to turn this person into full-time. If you can provide us with some funding, we'll be able to do that. And we're not responsible for any of the bennies or anything like that. It's just helping get this off the ground and see where it goes. And it's been going up. So it's free to the seniors, although they do ask for a donation if possible. It does help offset it, but a lot of the folks will give whatever they can.
So is Office for the Aging picking up some of the cost also?
Oh, yeah.
And is this an ongoing into the future? I mean, can we see this, expect this next year?
Yeah, it's nice to see a transportation solution that actually works. Really. And it's nice to see the community come together. I mean, these are volunteers that are volunteering their time and their car to drive seniors to Price Chopper to get their medicine. I mean, it's they modeled it after another county that had success. And it's great to see them having this type of success.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other discussion on the county executive amendments, let's go down them quickly here. Professional services, you said you can live with the cut. We'll leave that line item in. We'll leave this amendment in for mileage. And we're looking to leave everything as is, I suppose. So that being the vote, aye or nay as to whether to accept all of these as presented right now. Yeah, we're going to do them on each group.
Legislator Sweet.
For all of these county.
Sorry.
Legislator Dyman.
Aye.
Chairman Hadwell.
Aye.
Legislator Wilson.
Aye.
Legislator Duchessis.
Aye.
Legislator Isabel.
Aye.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Legislator Peck.
Aye. All right, thank you. All right, moving along. Emergency management. Sean and You don't have the sheet for you, do you?
That's a,
I got the sheet.
Okay, well then fire away.
yeah, it's a 2,500 cut, an equipment rental, 2,500 cut, and maintenance agreement, and $5,000 cut in miscellaneous supporting services. I don't know what those lines are specifically for, but I obviously would assume that those are probably fixed costs. Either contractual or.
I would say the two latter ones would be fixed costs. It's contractual arrangements that they have.
Okay.
I believe that the first one, they may be able to work, that's their equipment repair line.
Okay.
I would say, if you wanted to leave the first one in there and not do the second two, I'm sure if Rick had an issue with $2,500, we can work it out.
Okay. We ready?
So we're gonna leave the first one, delete the second?
Delete the second two lines.
No, we're gonna, yes, correct.
Changes.
Yeah. Equipment rental will stay in, and maintenance agreement and miscellaneous supporting services will be removed.
Okay, so on the first one, legislator Sneed. I'm sorry?
I'm still digging. This would be so much easier if this is all in one document. Just saying. It looks like it's been 7,000 right along, back to 18. 18 went down to 6,500. I don't want to shortchange this, but I don't know.
Legislator Dyman.
Aye.
Chairman Hedwell.
Aye.
Legislator Wilson.
Aye.
Legislator Duchessis.
Aye.
Legislator Isabel.
Aye.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Legislator Peck.
Aye.
Pass.
All right, our next group, the long-awaited county treasurer. Fire away, Sean.
All right, the first line, the attorneys, accountants, auditors, I currently have for our cost allocation plan, there's an $11,000 contract with Fineski and Company. The remaining, if you look at the last 2 years, in that line, in 17, I spent $18,377. That was 17. In 18, I spent $19,319. The other $6,000 is set aside for mainly bond counsel for the projects that we have where we're the reimbursable projects.
Okay.
Where we have to, because I can't charge the bonding expenses back against those reimbursable projects. It's not
Correct.
allowable expense.
Sorry, so that one we'll remove. Next.
The second item is the property tax searches that I have done on a yearly basis. If you look at the year to date,
Yeah.
there's zero spent. We give the list to the abstractor in November. The last 2 years, in 2017, I initially gave the abstractor a list of over 900 properties, and the expense ended up being 58.6. In 18, last year, we gave them a list of 850 properties, and the expense was 56.5. Now, when I'm saying giving you the numbers, the charge for each search is $100. So, if you want to take a chance, like I said, and the abstractor allows us to remove as people pay. And she does not charge us as long as she hasn't done the search. So, like I said, you could range anywhere from 60,000 to 90,000.
There's a little wiggle room is what you're saying, based on
Yes,
history.
but like I said, I would say the lowest I could probably go would be 60.
So we can take 10 now? You feel comfortable taking 10 now?
I could, like I said, I could try.
All right,
I could
let's do that.
If we need it, we're gonna have to come back.
All right, so the line item is 70, it'll be changed to 60 with a $10,000 increase. All right, next.
The next two items have to do with the two transfer stations. We initially requested to put a new scale at the Amsterdam transfer station. The executive and I decided to cut that out, so that potentially could be some costly repairs to keep that scale operational. So, like I said, this is the call for the ledge. If something happens at the transfer station, we're gonna have to come back to you.
Gentlemen?
So again, this property rental.
Property rental is repair.
Longer.
Yes. Like I said, this has nothing to do with rental. This is all has to do with repairs.
What's the difference between property rental and equipment rental?
Property is actually approved for repairs.
The property.
Buildings and grounds.
Versus equipment.
The equipment is pretty much our responsibility to scale.
Scale of the crane.
Well, we own all the equipment there at the facility. You know, there's trucks there that we own. You know, there's 5 or 6 trucks down there. There's the scales, there's the mowers, there's the backhoe, it's everything that is now belongs to us.
What is got to do is responsibility?
Any minor. Maybe you be the one to explain your contract. We've been through it 100 times. Minor repair. I mean, if a toilet overflows down there, somehow it's our responsibility to fix.
Everything is an argument.
But if they break something negligently, then they're supposed to replace it. We have insurance, they have insurance covering our equipment. And the bond, I believe. But yeah, like wear and tear, regular wear and tear.
But the crane itself there is getting towards the end of its life. I think that was the last time at $360,000.
The maintenance alone that goes into the crane, yeah, they're supposed to supply the yearly maintenance into its oil changes, hydraulic oil, greasing, day-to-day stuff like that.
That's probably 15, 20 years old.
I question if it is being maintained the way it should be.
Well, and that's the downside of any municipality that enters into a situation where they're leasing their own property, you have a contract like this, I mean, I'm not gonna bring that one up.
I guess my point is that we're leaving 6,000, 6,500, or leaving 9,000, 14,000, I'm on the wrong line. Leaving $20,000 in for equipment. I mean, you could eat that up real
Easily. Yeah. I'd say we remove them.
Remove the adjustments.
Yeah.
And both.
On both. All right, so I'll recap what we're going to be voting on here for the treasurer. We're going to remove the attorney line item. We're going to remove property rental and equipment rental. We're going to leave miscellaneous supporting services in, reducing it $10,000 from 70 to 60. That's what we're voting on, as described by the treasurer.
Legislator Sweet.
Aye.
Legislator Dyman.
Aye.
Chairman Hedwell.
Aye.
Legislator Wilson.
Aye.
Legislator Duchessis.
Aye.
Legislator Isabel.
Aye.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Legislator Peck.
Aye. All right, moving right along, real property. We got miscellaneous supporting services, budget line item 13,250. Proposed change of a $6,000 cut on 7250.
Do we have anybody that can explain this?
Hopefully our treasurer can.
Hopefully, because I'm not sure of that one.
That I don't have.
Maybe the sponsor can explain it.
What is miscellaneous services?
Maybe the sponsor can explain it.
Chairman Edwell, do you have some?
I think we're going through,
This is one of those
sure what they had spent so
year-to-date.
far this year to date. And,
I believe it has to do with their software contract.
Yeah.
Or their,
That would be what I was assuming.
All right.
Well, we can't touch that. Remove. Vote.
We just remove.
Yeah, yes.
Sorry if I say that.
I think we're all in favor of it. We don't have to do the straw there. Okay. All right, Board of Elections, we got a menu of 4 items here. some of which may be offsetting or income producing. Why don't you explain that, unless we got another one on the, we got another
Plenty
one.
of, like I said.
We got 3 of them also on the,
If you look at the budget book, you'll see on the Board of Elections, they have a revenue, election service charges of $175,000. That's and it's gonna be a number of things, items that is a chargeback, so they charge back to the municipality for election expenses. Of that 175, that includes the temporary employees, it includes the maintenance agreement, the supporting services, the special supplies, and the postage, and the software.
So it's the pass-through, is what you're saying?
Yes.
we need
Pass-through to the towns.
we need to remove all this.
Yeah, and they have early voting this year, which,
Yes.
And like I said, I believe they just did bring a resolution forward last month to increase the temp employees.
right, because they've got a bunch of stuff to do over there in the first floor there to make a petition.
And
to get
like I said,
accessibility.
Well, just want legislator head level.
Just to kind of back, look, I understand what legislator Headwell did, because look, if you look back at, like prior years, if they did not spend those lines, they did not realize the revenue either.
Right, okay. All right, remove them all then. A vote to remove them all.
All right.
Yes.
Aye. Okay, remove. DPW, we don't need to discuss these again, Commissioner, do we?
No, sir.
Can we presume that since we left them in, we're in favor of them? Okay, leave them in. Printing and data. 3 of them.
Yes, I can speak to you.
Okay.
You know, the only one I'd be somewhat concerned of, and maybe we go even more in the middle, as far as we've had this discussion of eliminating any fluff we can find, and, you know, in the case you come to the board, that could be good, that could be bad. But, you know, in looking at the numbers, I think Sean and I would say, you know, they haven't always reached the number that was in the budget. Specifically, you know, the software and, you know, I'm not so sure about the office supplies. But I personally, and the department head might say a little different, I personally am fine with the office supply cut. I think most people took a trim on that, and an additional trim of 3,000 isn't going to, you know, provide us to not be able to provide the level of service we provide. The overtime pay, because I know which employee that's predominantly used for, my recommendation would be maybe we go to the middle and leave 7,500 in there instead of 5,000. And on the third one, computer software, I'm fine with the decrease, and if there is a worthwhile project that needs to be done, it needs to come forward, then we'll come to the board and we'll evaluate it on its merits if they need more money.
All right, so to recap, any other discussion? All right, so to recap, first one for printing and data, leave in. Second one, amend to 7,500 and a change of 7,500. And the third one, leave in.
25,000.
Yes.
Legislator Sweet.
Digging. If this is correct, budget actual in 2017 was 172,000. Adopted budget in 18 was 99,000.
For computer, the last one?
Yeah, 4459.
We've also gone through if this is the software, I'm assuming this is a lot of the Microsoft Word and licenses and things of that nature. And, you know, like I said, you know, if that number is not going to work, then we'll have that discussion and I'll come to the board and explain why. But given the fluctuations of some of the department's spending, and, you know, even in some years, as Sean and I look back, there were years that they did hit the number, there were years they didn't hit the number. I don't have a huge problem, especially at a time where we're trying to pinch back.
Okay.
I understand there might be some pain, or if you want to slightly, maybe even go to 80 and make it a $15,000 cut just to be a little bit safer. But, you know, the worst thing that can happen is we come back and say, hey, you know, we might need $10,000 more for X, Y, and Z
but then there's some room within the budget to work as well, so.
I like the 25K.
It wasn't much, if I remember correctly.
So Brian,
We only spent $20,000.
That's a tough one to go by year to date because
Yeah.
contracts come.
Yeah, a lot of times,
It's not contract.
you know, a lot of times one thing that happens in that department, which has caused an issue for auditing, is a lot of times they wait until Black Friday to make a lot of purchases because they can get the best prices, which is more towards the end of the year, which overloads the end with vouchers and next thing you know. So that could happen there, but I'll just have a frank talk with Dan and I'll say if it was too far, we'll figure out a way to do it, whether it's within your own budget, another department's budget, and then we'll go those routes before we go to get fund balance.
so what do we want to do? Cut it a little or not touch it?
Keep that 25K.
All right, so that was the original. All right, so again, first one, second one cut 7,500, third one leave in.
Legislator Sweet.
Aye.
Legislator Diamond.
Aye.
Chairman Hedwell.
Aye.
Legislator Wilson.
Aye.
Legislator Duchessis.
Aye.
Legislator Isabel.
Aye.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Legislator Platt.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, our next block, our sheriff jail, which we talked about in depth with the sheriff. So I would like to, not only, and I was remiss when it came to the county executive on this one myself, and actually the Board of Elections too, because there were some other ones under the budget officer one. So, well, let's just vote on this block of sheriff and jail. We'll get to the budget officer ones later. We'll skip the other ones. These should all be ayes because we already trimmed them. All right, so let's move on. Public health and mental health, DSS, these should all be ayes, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on. Veterans Youth Outreach Program. Change from 21.6 to 36.6, 15,000. This is Legislator Kelly's recommendation to fund the bond affair. I believe.
Yes.
Yes. And he is not here to defend himself or make his plea, but
He did text me to ask if we had gotten to this.
I don't see the problem leaving this in. I know there's a history with this, 3-4 years ago, we had to pay for a certain performer or something, and somebody came and rejected it. He's been relying on it ever since, but that's not for me to decide, it's for us to decide. Yes, let's go on a vote.
Legislator Sweet.
Aye.
Legislator Diamond.
No, and I was just say, I think it's a conflict with the treasurer of the fairgrounds.
He's stepping down, by the way. But he did, he told me that
He
did. He's still the treasurer.
Correct, so
Yes.
that's why I would vote no on this.
Chairman Hedwell.
No.
Legislator Wilson.
Yes.
Legislator Duchessis.
Yes.
Legislator Isabel.
Yes.
Legislator Patel.
Yes.
Legislator Platt.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, probation. Can you help us with that, Sean? Mileage. 7,000 down to 5,000, $2,000 cut.
Probation officers, their mileage. They don't have any, I don't believe they have any cars.
All right, let's vote.
Legislator Sweet.
I'd like to see what it was.
Sure.
I can just see. Yeah, it's my packet.
While we're looking, I would say usually the seal's pretty right on the money. That's a very tight ship, and I'm hesitant to mess with her too much as a rule of thumb because she always ends up being right. But maybe there's an opportunity with those electric cars to try to reduce some of that
Did we
mileage.
also just get her a car this year too? So
No, we replaced the nasty van.
Yeah.
I gave her one of my vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that one has a primary purpose, that's what it's used for. It's not something that can be used for their mileage. I mean, I don't think it'd be necessarily the end of the world, but usually she's pretty sharp with her numbers.
Yeah, I think the number she has.
She's only spent 1,500 so far this year. You had 9,000 in the budget,
Is that through what, August?
September 13th.
Yeah, I mean, it's $2,000. It would be the end of the world, but
Yeah. All right, let's vote to keep it in.
Ready, legislators week?
Is that a death note?
Yeah.
Yes.
Legislator Diamond,
I'm not in favor of this, no, students in my district, I'm not gonna give them phone calls.
Legislator Chairman Hegel,
Aye.
Legislator Wilson,
Aye.
Legislator Duchessis,
Aye.
Legislator Isabel,
Aye.
Legislator
Yes.
Legislator Peck,
Aye.
Legislator Sweet.
No.
Pass.
All right, purchasing equipment round. $20,000 line item cut to 15.
That's a direct offset with insurance recoveries. If something is damaged, and we get an insurance recovery check, that's where the expense gets paid out as well. So if you're gonna reduce that, you gotta reduce the revenue.
Delete. Everybody in favor of deleting based on that? Okay, delete. Please delete. All right, our next three entries we talked about earlier, as it pertained to DPW, with $75,000 for the equipment. So those are all leave. Okay? All right, now down into the budget officer changes. County executive, and as we get to these, it reminds me, I'm hoping, and I think some of my fellow legislators are hoping, that changes such as these are going to go a long way toward eliminating budget changes in January and February, correct?
that is correct.
Okay.
And you know, listen, it's a big budget. If we do it early, some mistakes happen. We apologize for those mistakes. But
Yeah.
Sean did do a good job of going back through and correcting them.
Better catching them here than having a resolution in January, February.
Yes.
All right, so why don't you break into song about the first one?
Sure, yeah, so that, again, it was done by resolution, there's a person in the position, it was an oversight because it went from one budget to another. The
You left Eric's budget, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
The second one is a part-time person that's helping train the new director, who has a significant amount of experience. Initially cut out of my budget because we, again, with the goals that we set out for the executive budget, but knowing this was going to be a discussion, I went back to the department head and said, is this absolutely necessary, and where do you stand? And we had a good discussion about it. It's not going to be something that stays in long term, but at least for another year, she says it's mission critical. And again, there's a person in that position. The next two would be Sean.
I can comment. On the Board of Elections, they initially gave us numbers that weren't quite accurate. They were looking to do an e-book for a grant. They initially put in
The one that's adding revenue, right?
Yes, they initially made it as it was going to be an expense of $25,000, but now since they've got some actual estimates, the grant will more than cover the cost of these e-books, and they'll be able to apply some more of that grant money to some of their other expenses.
About 6,000 or 7,000 more, right?
So that's the change for Board of Elections.
Okay.
And the last four with the sheriff is
We already talked about. All right, so I suppose any discussion anybody wants to have with the treasurer or the executive about any of these?
One quick question.
Absolutely.
The real property part-time, so that part-time person is training the full-time
So
replacement?
And please stop being negative if I get out of line here. The best way I can say this is, the previous director loved the job, but not the management responsibilities, and ended up resigning and leaving. The new director, and which a lot of people are dealing with in a state qualifications, which is great, an internal promotion, but that person was a mapper and not too much on the assessing side. Well, interestingly enough, the former director was interested in coming back part-time to help with that other side that the current director is learning. She feels like she needs about another year. And it's been a tremendous help to the office, everyone's happy, and I said, it's absolutely mission critical, and she said, absolutely. If we don't have this part-time person, we're gonna have to contract out for some additional help.
Any other discussion on this block of changes? Hearing none, let's do a straw on them collectively.
Legislator Sweet. Legislator Dyman. Chairman Headwell. Legislator Wilson. Legislator Duchessis. Legislator Isabel. Legislator Patel. Legislator Caput.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, Cheryl, can you please tomorrow send us out a revised version of this? I'm sure nobody's going to hang around waiting for it now after 3 hours of the flying thing. And let Sean check into it, okay. Other than that, thank you all for making yourselves available this evening, legislature and department heads and administration alike. And tomorrow we have a budget public hearing at 5:55. And something tells me we might have some visitors. No?
Area 51?
No.
It's Chair Sweet.
Oh, that's not a budget. Is it a public hearing for the budget or no?
Oh, the public hearing for the budget.
Yes.
Yes, but then we also have a budget.
Oh, okay, yeah, but those who were told that they couldn't speak here tonight may want to speak tomorrow.
They may, correct.
Okay. Like such as the gentleman who was here earlier?
Could be.
County Executive Osborne?
Yes, sir.
Did you perhaps have a discussion with the individual who wanted to speak tonight, and will they be coming back tomorrow?
No, I don't think so. I actually had a really nice discussion with that gentleman. He's an Amsterdam resident, newly moved to the area a few years ago, just had some questions. And quite frankly, he said to me, he was just discussing with his wife, their future, and just wanted to get a better idea of where the area was going. It was a very nice discussion, actually. I was pleasantly surprised to come to find out we're neighbors.
Oh, yes.
I told him, you got done before you stopped.
He's stalking you now.
The legislature did mention to me upon my arrival that she got some phone calls from people who were interested in speaking tonight.
Oh.
So, and deflected them perhaps to tomorrow.
Oh.
So we may see some people tomorrow.
I don't know, there's, before the budget is approved, there's a public opportunity to speak. I would think that would be the time.
I think it's tomorrow. Is it?
During public hearing, they can speak.
The public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, hearing no other discussion? Yes. Yes.
Still for, just food for thought for next year. So when we do this, just to make it easier. The information that we get, I'd like to go over it at some point, so we're not digging through multiple packs of information to try to find actuals, year-to-dates, all that stuff. There are other things that we can do as far as, if it's a hard number, meaning it's a contractual number, maybe we could highlight that, so we're not looking at that saying, oh, Jesus, and then if you're talking to the department heads and they're saying, oh, we can't do anything about that. Then there are contracts or all things like that that are hard numbers that we can't touch. So if we highlight those, I mean, we'll discuss it further, but I just think we need to revamp the way things are done to make it a little bit more streamlined.
I would like to also think, though, that the last 3 years have been some of the more specific budget reviews that have occurred in history. Yes? No?
I agree with it, absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, yes, legislator Patel.
Yeah, I think we made great strides this year communicating with the executive's office and amongst ourselves. And we made some great cuts this year. I think to Brian's point, I'd really like to see a structure that we set up when we're done with the budget process, that we go back and review what documents were helpful, what documents were not. So before even the end of the year, we can set up a format that, look, this is what we're expecting. I I mean, when we first came here, we had a book of backup that was just this thick, and you know, you have to go through all the documents to try to find. I think we've made great headway in establishing some spreadsheets, if you will. If we could, after the budget session is over, if we could develop our plan for next year or a format for it.
Well, thank you both for your input. I think it would have been helpful for all of us to have the year-to-date budgets usage and not, you know, I mean, I'm sure, I mean, there's certain things I'm going to ask for as chairman that I'm going to use as tools to frame these meetings that you're all, you know, obviously gave you access to almost immediately as I have. The year-to-date stuff, I remember getting it the past 2 years and we never got it this year. And I think if Legislator Sweet had gotten that, he would have been happier, you know. Well, I can't blame him because that's one of his, I mean, from the first legislature that we had, that was one of the printouts that he spoke of the most, having used as a supervisor. He was the most helpful. But certainly, I mean, this is a work in progress. And we can always make enhancements to everything, you know, so certainly we can move in that direction.
So,
Yes.
so what was passed tonight is going to be put in the format of a resolution to be put on the full board meeting next Tuesday.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes, that's the idea. So that we can approve it on the first, right? Yeah. All right, and hearing any other discussion? Motion to adjourn.